Hello, everyone. Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in Overlord as Supreme Lord, Part 2. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it.
By the edge of the forest, the carriage wheels ground along the narrow, rutted path, jolting over roots and stones with rhythmic thumps that echoed through the trees. Seated on the bench, Ninya stared at Hellant in a quiet daze. Her staff rested loosely in her lap, knuckles pale from gripping it too tightly. Her mouth hung slightly open before she caught herself and closed it slowly, cheeks warming under the scrutiny. Hellant turned his head, catching her gaze. "What's wrong? You've been staring at me since we left this morning." Cough cough. The moment the words left his lips, every head in the carriage swiveled toward Ninya, curious, amused, expectant. Peter Mock, leader of the Swords of Darkness, chuckled. "Yeah, Ninya. From the crack of dawn until now, your eyes haven't left Mr. Hellant once. Got something on your mind?" The sudden attention prickled across Ninya's skin like nettles. She fidgeted, her voice small. Well. Mino leaned in, nudging Hellant with her elbow and whispering just loud enough for the others to hear, "Does this little girl have a crush on you or what?" "Little girl?" Hellant blinked in genuine surprise. Even Mamanga, sharp as he was, hadn't immediately clocked Ninya as female beneath her boyish attire and mannerisms. Yet Mino had picked it up effortlessly. "You noticed?" "A girl's intuition, obviously." Mino rolled her eyes dramatically. "She's been glued to you the whole ride." "How could I miss it?" Hellant considered for a moment, then offered a gentle smile. "It's probably not romantic. Something else, I'd wager." Ninya, unused to being the center of so many gazes, finally found her voice, hesitant but earnest. I actually wanted to ask. Mr. Hellant, Mr. Mammon, Mino, Miss Nabe, you don't really seem like typical adventurers. More like pampered nobles, honestly. The way you carry yourselves, the gear. Why choose this life at all?" The question hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. It instantly sharpened the curiosity of the Swords of Darkness and Fyria alike. After all, most adventurers risked their lives for coin, scraping by meal to meal in a world that offered no guarantees. Given the choice between noble comforts and the adventurer's uncertain grind, nearly anyone would pick luxury without a second thought. Yet Hellant and his companions radiated none of the desperation, none of the rough edges of survival. While the others stared openly, Fyria used the moment to study Hellant more closely. The platinum-colored priest robes were unmistakably high-grade magical items, alchemical weave and subtle enchantments shimmering at the seams. His skin was fair and flawless, untouched by sun or hardship, every detail screamed meticulous care. And when Fyria's eyes lingered on Hellant's strikingly handsome features, a flicker of jealousy twisted in his chest before he could suppress it. In terms of looks alone, Hellant outshone anyone Fyria had ever met. Yesterday's casual production of that blood-red recovery potion still nagged at him too. A noble from the Empire? Or maybe even the slain theocracy? The speculation churned quietly behind his polite expression. Hellant laughed softly, adopting a playful tone. "All right, I'll reveal a little, nothing too deep. Some time ago, I was badly injured by a demon god. Had to recuperate nearby, out of the public eye." He deliberately glanced at Mamanga as he spoke the words demon god, a faint spark of shared amusement passing between them. "As luck would have it, I ran into my good friend Mammon here. He was tracking down another one of those demon gods at the time. We talked it over and decided, why not become adventurers while we continue the hunt? Keeps us sharp, lets us blend in." Mr. Hellant, you're quite the storyteller," Ninya replied politely, though her tone carried gentle skepticism. "A demon god? That's a stretch." Demon gods haven't walked the land since the era of the 13 heroes. Peter nodded along, taking it as a light deflection. Mr. Hellant clearly didn't want to share his true origins and had spun a tall tale instead. As the carriage neared the forest's shadowy fringe, Peter shifted to practical matters. Speaking of which, Mr. Hellant, Mr. Mammon, there are goblin packs in these woods. If you don't have at least mithril rank strength, stay sharp. They're more dangerous than they look. At the words, Narbrel's hand snapped to her sword hilt. She took half a step forward, posture rigid as a drawn bowstring, eyes flashing with icy fury. Damned maggot, how dare you question the Supreme? Nabe. Apologies, Lord Mammon. A sudden chill raced down Peter's spine. He caught the edge of Mammon quietly reprimanding Nabe, their voices too low to make out, but the tension was palpable. Ehem. Mamanga cleared his throat. Thank you for your warning. Hellant suppressed his laugh and turned back to Ninya with an easy smile. About the 13 heroes, could you tell me more? The kingdom's records are spotty at best. Ninya brightened slightly, grateful for the change of subject. Well, since so much has been lost or exaggerated over the centuries, I only know the broad strokes. Their leader was incredibly strong, started weak, supposedly, but grew to dominate the group. There was a black knight famous for wielding multiple legendary blades, the Four Swords of Darkness. That's actually where our team name comes from. She smiled shyly. We dream of finding even one someday. Hellant chuckled. Don't you need our help with the goblins ahead? It's just a dozen or so, Ninya said, cheeks tinting pink. The leader probably spotted they weren't too numerous and wants to show off a bit, prove to you newcomers how we handle them. Dine nodded sagely from his seat. Don't let their ugly, stupid looks fool you. Goblins are clever, ambushes, traps, numbers. New adventurers fall to them all the time. Hellant and Mamanga watched with quiet interest as Peter and Luckrut moved to confront the initial goblin scouts, blades drawn and stances confident. A few goblins, however, slipped past the front line unnoticed, creeping through the underbrush to circle behind, poised for a classic pincer. Mammon, Hellant murmured, voice low, this world really doesn't let us underestimate anything. Even goblins know how to set up proper ambushes. Precisely, Mamanga replied, armored form still as stone. If creatures this low have tactical cunning, we must remain vigilant at all times. Goo goo gaga. As the words faded, the goblins encircling Peter and Luckrut erupted in guttural cries. The ground trembled faintly under pounding feet, chaotic rustling exploded from the forest depths. Hundreds of goblins poured out, snarling, claws bared, saliva dripping from jagged fangs, far more than the scouts had suggested. Mammon, Hellant said calmly, eyes narrowing, he really wasn't exaggerating. Their intelligence isn't low at all. They've mastered baiting and flanking. Wah! Hundreds of goblins erupted from the tree-line, surging across the grass like a viscous tide of green filth rolling downhill, snarling, weapons raised, eyes gleaming with feral hunger. Not good. Ninya gripped her staff tighter, knuckles white, and shouted toward the encircled Peter and Luckrut. Get back. There are trolls mixed in with the goblins. Peter pivoted instantly, stance widening as he scanned the forest. Amid the swarming horde, 3-meter brutes lumbered forward, massive clubs dragging furrows in the earth. Each thunderous step sent tremors through the ground. Luckrut, we break through. Peter's stomach twisted. Hundreds of goblins plus trolls. This was steel-rank suicide at best. I think, we're not breaking through anywhere, Luckrut replied, voice heavy with grim acceptance. Peter glanced back. The smaller goblins clung like rabid parasites, shrieking in delight as they dragged more of their kin into the fray. By the time he ripped the last one free, dozens more had already closed the ring around him. He gritted his teeth, gaze cutting past the mob to Ninya and Dine. Take Nymphyria and run. Now! Ninya angled her staff, mana flickering at the tip, but hesitated. Damn it, they're too close. I'd hit you too. Whack! Whack! From farther off, another wave howled and charged the wagon. To the goblins, Ninya, Nymphyria, and Hellant were fresh, easy meat. Drool streamed from jagged fangs as they closed in. Nymphyria sat rigid on the driver's bench, shirt drenched in cold sweat, staring at the oncoming green avalanche. Are we really going to die here? Despair settled like lead in the hearts of the Swords of Darkness and the young pharmacist. Fourth tier spell, Arrows of Starlight. Hellant's voice cut through the din, calm, almost gentle. Dozens of luminous motes coalesced into radiant bolts that shimmered like captured starlight, then streaked forward like falling meteors. Swish! 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 Arg! Every arrow found its mark, piercing goblin skulls and torsos with surgical precision. Not a single one missed. The ring around Peter and Luckrut disintegrated in seconds. Mr. Hellant, the two adventurers gasped in unison, shock freezing them mid-swing. Hellant was already forming two more volleys, glowing points orbiting his hands. It's still battle time. No time to gawk. Right, battle time. Mamanga drew two massive, ostentatious greatswords and leaped into the fray. He spun like a living whirlwind, anything the blades touched parted in sprays of gore. Lightning arced wildly around Narbril, chaining from goblin to troll in crackling bursts that left charred husks smoking on the grass. Eat my axe. Mino hefted a battle axe larger than herself and hurled it with terrifying force. The spinning blade carved a wide, bloody swath through the ranks, embedding in a troll's chest with a wet crunch. Ninya swallowed hard, eyes wide. So strong. Peter stood rooted, dazed. I actually thought I'd show these people how it's done. 10 minutes later, the field was a charnel house of severed limbs and cooling corpses. The sharp, metallic reek of blood hung thick in the air, clinging to clothes and skin. Ninya stared at Hellant in open awe. You're incredible. Only the legendary warrior chief of the kingdom could match that kind of power. Peter approached, cheeks burning with embarrassment. I thought you were green, wanted to demonstrate for you. Hellant and his companions didn't even have dirt on their cloaks. Unlimited third and fourth tier spells, blades and axes that turned battle into slaughter, Peter offered a wry, self-deprecating smile. Maybe they lacked field experience, but their strength was beyond question. Narbril sneered down at him. Foolish insect. You've glimpsed scarcely 1/10,000th of the Supra, Lord Hellant and Lord Mommon's true might. The blood stink was growing nauseating. Hellant waved a hand. Let's clean up and move on. We still have distance to cover before nightfall. Night had fallen by the time they made camp. Pine logs snapped and popped in the campfire, flames leaping to paint flickering shadows across their faces. The group sat in a loose circle, exhaustion giving way to quiet chatter. Nymphyria, why Carne Village? Peter asked, knowing the pharmacist made regular trips there. Nymphyria's cheeks flushed crimson. There's a girl there. I like her. Oh. Luckrut slung a companionable arm around his shoulders. Did you catch her yet? Nymphyria sighed, shoulders slumping. I don't know if she feels the same. Laughter rippled around the fire, light, understanding. Youthful love was a rite of passage they'd all stumbled through. Mamanga lounged beside Hellant, voice low and teasing. Back when Buku was chasing you in the old days, she was just as shy at first. Then she got bold and nearly drugged me into sealing the deal, Hellant sighed, a fond, exasperated memory surfacing. What are you sighing for? Mino latched onto his arm, pressing close with deliberate mischief. In Helen's mind, The image of the unsinkable commander and the skilled voice actor Bukabukagama briefly overlapped with Mino's lively energy. Maybe that echo of protectiveness was why accepting Albedo had felt smoother. Definitely not about chest size. "You two are a couple, right?" Ninya asked suddenly, eyes sharp despite the firelight. Mino straightened proudly, beaming. "Sharp eyes. You noticed. I heard nobles marry young. You're so close, are you?" Hellant cut in smoothly. "You're mistaken. We're not nobles." Ninya blinked. "You're not." Hellant seized the opening. "I'm a human emissary of the Holy Domain God Lord. Essentially clergy." "Holy Domain God Lord?" Ninya tilted her head, the name was unfamiliar. She looked at him expectantly. Hellant continued evenly, "The world has long forgotten his name, but you'll hear it again soon enough." "That told me absolutely nothing," Mino whispered, nibbling playfully at his ear. "Ouch." Hellant pinched her cheek in retaliation. She bared her teeth in mock glare. Mr. Hellant," Ninya twisted her fingers nervously. "May I ask a favor? Could I borrow your name?" Hellant, Mamanga, and Narbril all turned to her. "You're so strong. You'll become a great figure someday. My elder sister was taken by a noble of the kingdom. I learned magic to get strong enough to bring her back. If I find her, could I use your name to demand her release?" Ninya rose and bowed deeply. "I won't abuse it. I swear." She'd already traced rumors to the city where her sister had been sold. After this job, she'd go. But her own power was still too limited. Dropping his name might make all the difference. Using a lion's roar to frighten off the jackals. "Of course," Hellant replied without hesitation. "If my reputation can help you in any way, use it freely." Tears shimmered in Ninya's eyes. "Thank you." Watching her, Hellant adopted a thoughtful expression. "Well, if things go right. This girl's sister will be Seabass's future girlfriend. Thinking of which? The Great Tomb of Nazarick. 6th floor, Aura's dwelling." The air in Aura's personal quarters carried the clean, resinous scent of living pine and damp earth, a deliberate echo of the vast forest that sprawled beyond the chamber's illusory walls. Low lanterns cast warm pools of light across the wooden table where the four sat, but the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. "Albedo, what's with all the secrecy?" Aura complained, kicking one leg idly against her chair. She eyed the overseer across from her with open suspicion, dark elf ears twitching. "You dragged us here like it's some big emergency. Spill it already." Beside her, Mare sat quietly, fingers twisting in his lap, while Herrick's, broad-shouldered, scales glinting faintly under the lantern glow, leaned forward, arms crossed, his draconic gaze fixed on Albedo with matching bewilderment. "The plan I wish to discuss today," Albedo said, her lovely face settling into grave lines, "is codenamed the Supreme Being Hunt." The words dropped like stones into still water. Herrick's and Mare stared, stunned into immobility. Slaughter a supreme being? The idea alone bordered on sacrilege. Their eyes narrowed, pupils sharpening to dangerous slits. Bang! Aura slammed her palms on the table hard enough to rattle the lanterns and leaped to her feet. "Albedo, do you even hear yourself? You'd betray one of the supreme beings? Aura, everyone, please calm yourselves." Albedo's voice stayed even, almost gentle, though her golden eyes never wavered. "Hear me out before you judge." The raw trust they all shared as guardians won out over the flare of rage. Aura huffed, dropped back into her seat with a thud, and folded her arms tightly. Mare and Herrick's exchanged a quick glance but held their tongues, waiting. "I love Lord Hellant with all my heart," Albedo continued, and when his name passed her lips, pure adoration softened her features, lighting her eyes like embers. And you are all his cherished children. Each of us exists for him alone. Our loyalty belongs to Lord Hellant, and no other. Aura, Mare, and Herix nodded without hesitation. To them, Lord Hellant wasn't just a supreme being, he was father, guiding star, the unshakable truth carved into their very souls from the moment they awoke. But hunting supreme beings? The connection escaped them. Doubt lingered in their stares like smoke. Albedo rose slowly, black wings rustling with restrained energy. As you know, every century or so, players, supreme beings, descend upon this world. The 6 great gods, the 8 greed kings, they all once walked the same realm as our creators. Mare's eyes widened, a spark of hope breaking through his caution. You mean, the supreme beings might return? They could come here? Albedo inclined her head. Perhaps some already walk among us, concealed. Or perhaps they will arrive in time. They're coming. Aura breathed, a grin tugging at her lips despite everything. She pictured Bukabukagama. Her creator, her mother who'd shaped her and Mare's whole dynamic with that bossy, protective streak. Excitement flickered hot in her chest before suspicion doused it. She fixed Albedo with a hard stare. Then explain what this hunt of yours actually means. Albedo's gaze swept the room, wings flaring wider in sudden fervor. 2 rulers are enough for this world, Lord Hellant and Lord Mamanga. Don't you agree? Deep down, even Lord Mamanga felt like one ruler too many. If not for Hellant's own dual monarch arrangement, she'd have quietly added him to the tally without a second thought. She turned her eyes pointedly to Herix. You want to track down any arriving supreme being and kill them? Herix's voice came out low, edged with frost, his draconic aura prickling the air. Madness. You would raise your hand against the other supreme ones? Mare and Aura surged upright together, hostility crackling like static. That list would include Lady Bukabukagama herself. The thought was unthinkable, beyond blasphemy. Aura and Mare would never stand for it. Relax, Albedo soothed quickly, palms raised. Lady Bukabukagama is not a target. Never. Truly. Suspicion still threaded their voices. Albedo's tone hardened with certainty. Remember, Lady Bukabukagama loves Lord Hellant. They are bound to be family. She lingered on the word family, letting it sink in deep. Because I love Lord Hellant above everything, I conceived this hunt. But I would never betray that love by striking someone who cherishes him as I do. When Lady Bukabukagama arrives, we can all dwell happily together with Lord Hellant. Would that not be perfect? Albedo's eyes gleamed, bright and unyielding. In her mind, Lady Bukabukagama could only ever be an ally, unless she crossed some invisible line, in which case quiet, efficient erasure would follow without remorse. Mother and father together. The image melted the tension from Aura and Mare's shoulders. They sank back down, gazes turning distant, dreaming of a warm, complete family that had always felt just out of reach. Herix drummed scaled fingers on the table, thoughtful. Albedo, do you truly believe father will sanction this scheme? He respected her, this future consort of his creator, sharp-minded and fanatically devoted to Hellant's interests. But respect meant speaking truth. Of all Nazarick's children, Herix knew his maker best. Lord Hellant had never craved power for its own sake. He'd handed the Guildmaster's throne to Mamanga without a flicker of regret, content with grand adventures or quiet evenings surrounded by those he cared for. If he discovered Albedo's plan, the punishment would be swift and merciless, imprisonment, execution, something worse. She was the instigator, after all. I understand the risk, Albedo said, voice steady, fervor burning bright. As long as no one can threaten Lord Hellant's eternal life, I am content. She lifted her chin. Will you join us? Herix's gaze hardened into resolve. Of course I will. Albedo allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. With Herrick's committed, the impossible edged toward reality. He wasn't just another NPC, he was a draconic terror, Nazarick's foremost warrior in raw strength. And Lord Hellant had recently ordered him to roam the world in true form, infiltrating dragonkind. To Albedo, the notion of a ferocious dragon, stumbling across a lone supreme being carried delicious possibilities. She settled back into her seat, studying Aura and Mare, quiet allies now, imaginations already painting brighter futures. Then her thoughts brushed against Mino, born from the world-class item Heart of the Sanctuary, imperfect yet fiercely, unwaveringly loyal to Lord Hellant. With this, Albedo murmured, almost to herself, Lord Hellant commands 5 level 100 champions. We need only wait for the perfect moment to set the Supreme Being hunt in motion. We're finally here. Nymphyria stood on the gentle rise, pointing ahead with barely contained excitement, his voice carrying over the rustle of wind through the grass. Hellant and the others followed his gaze. Below them lay Carne Village. A modest cluster of thatched cottages encircled by sturdy new wooden walls, smoke drifting lazily from chimneys, the faint sounds of hammers and distant shouts drifting up like echoes of normal life reclaiming itself. It seems once you get near Carne Village, the monsters just vanish, Ninya observed, striding easily at the front, staff tapping the dirt path. She sounded almost relieved. That's because the wise king keeps them in check, Nymphyria explained as they descended, boots crunching on dry leaves. The wise king of the forest stops anything from attacking humans in this area, or at least, that's how it's always been. He trailed off at the village gate, frowning. Wait. I don't remember these walls or this reinforced gate being here before. Hey, who are you people? State your business in Carne Village. A squad of goblins in patched leather armor stepped into view behind the gate, spears leveled, eyes wary and sharp. They weren't the ragged people Nymphyria knew. Goblins. Nymphyria's heart slammed against his ribs. How could goblins be inside the village? Had the place been overrun while he was away? His mind raced to Enri, as he'd always called her, and a cold knot twisted in his gut. If anything had happened to her. Then a soft, familiar voice cut through the tension. Nymphyria? A sweet-faced blonde girl in a simple dress peered through the slats, eyes widening in delight. Nymphyria's face lit up like dawn breaking. Enri. Enri pressed a hand to her mouth, then turned to the goblins. Let them in, please. They're my friends. Carne Village felt small and alive in a way Nymphyria hadn't expected. 19 goblins moved through the streets like a well-oiled machine. Hauling timber for repairs, sharpening weapons, patrolling the perimeter, even drilling in neat formations near the central square. The villagers worked alongside them without fear, exchanging nods and quiet words. Mamanga strolled beside Hellant, armored form drawing curious glances, then leaned in to whisper. Those are the goblin retainers summoned by the Horn of the Goblin General, I gave her. Surprisingly capable for goblins. Organized, loyal, even intelligent. He watched the revival with genuine interest. Only days after the massacre, the village already breathed again, fields being tended, children laughing, the smell of fresh bread mixing with wood smoke. He found himself quietly admiring the girl, Enri, who'd turned tragedy into something resilient. Hellant nodded. Local goblins can't compare in strength or wits. These ones actually look like they know what they're doing. Since when are you generous with your collection, Mamanga? Hellant teased under his breath, a smirk tugging at his lips. Mamanga gave a wry chuckle, the sound muffled by his helm. It only summons 19 at a time, and you know what goblins are usually good for, cannon fodder, distractions. I have plenty more horns stashed away. I tossed this one out just to see how a Yggdrasil item behaves in reality. Didn't expect this. Hellant said nothing more, but in his mind he pictured Momonga's expression when Enri eventually triggered the horn's hidden claws. Under the right conditions, village under siege, commander class leveled up, she could call 5,000 at once. A trinket dismissed as trash in the game, now a potential army in the new world. Night fell soft and cool. Hellant, Momonga, Mino, and Nabe gathered in a borrowed room lit by a single lantern. The village sounds had faded to crickets and distant goblin patrols. A lively female voice echoed suddenly in Hellant and Momonga's minds, Sheltier's telepathic link. Lord Hellant, Lord Momonga, I've reached the outskirts of Irantal. I've learned there's a warrior here whose skill rivals the kingdom's warrior chief. Oh. Crimson light flared in Momonga's eye sockets, interest sharpening. The martial arts Gazef Stronov wielded were nothing like Yggdrasil's warrior skills. Raw, grounded, almost elegant in their simplicity. Now Sheltier spoke of someone on that level. Intriguing. Hellant-san, shall we take a look? Momonga asked, voice low. Sure. Hellant agreed without hesitation, excitement flickering in his eyes. He hadn't forgotten Sheltier's mission overlapped with the Black Scripture, the elite of the slain theocracy, guardians of the world-class item, downfall of castle and country. The mind control artifact once meant for threats like the catastrophe Dragon Lord. The first true world-class item of this world was about to fall into his hands. He turned to Mino and Nabe. Stay here and keep watch over the village. Come back soon. Mino waved, grumbling softly, though her eyes lingered on him with that familiar mix of pout and worry. In the forest outside Irantal, black clouds smothered the moon, turning the woods into a pit of ink. The air hung thick and damp, carrying the faint rot of fallen leaves. Quies Hazia Quintia, one-man army, fifth seat of the Black Scripture, scanned the shadows, nostrils flaring at a lingering metallic tang. Blood. This close to Irantal, where Nigan was wiped out by that sorcerer king, he muttered. We need to be extra cautious. In an instant he raised his sword, signaling the others to close ranks around the old woman in the chipao. Lady Care. The only person left in the theocracy who could wield, downfall of castle and nations, was the linchpin. She and the item had to survive at all costs. Their mission was to charm the ruined Dragon Lord, but survival trumped everything. If a threat appeared he couldn't handle, Care would activate the world-class item, and they'd flee. To hell with the dragon, to hell with the Sorcerer King. Bringing her and the artifact home safely was all that mattered. Monster. A ranger burst from the trees, sprinting blindly toward Irantal. Before Quies could react, hundreds of crimson eyes ignited in the darkness. Shadow wolves, shadow spiders, shadow bats poured out like living nightmares, vampire familiars. Protect Lady Care. They're vampire familiars, use faith magic. At his command, a priest stepped forward and shouted, 5th tier magic, undead purification. Whoosh! Jade radiance bloomed from the priest, shooting skyward and piercing the canopy. The light flooded half the forest, searing the shadows. The beasts melted like frost under sun, dissolving without a sound. When the glow faded, Quies moved to Care's side. Stay alert. Where vampire familiars roam, a true vampire is close. The words had barely left his mouth when the stench of blood slammed into them, thick, coppery, overwhelming. Then a pair of scarlet eyes blazed from the gloom. She stepped out leisurely. Pale skin, silver hair, crimson gown, a humanoid figure with a lamprey-like maw splitting her face in a grotesque smile. Terror and killing intent gripped every throat like an iron fist. Cold sweat soaked Quies' back. The pressure surpassed even Zeshi Zetsumei. Demon God class. He lunged forward without summoning his beasts, sword flashing. Lady Care, use, downfall of castle and country. She's Demon God class. Damn it. No ruined Dragon Lord, no Sorcerer King. Just a straight collision with a monster beyond reckoning. A creature like that left only one option. Run. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Understood. Lady Care's expression was solemn as her clouded eyes locked onto Shaltir. The white gold patterns on her cheongsam shimmered, forming a misty dragon motif. As her gaze fixed on Shaltir, the white gold dragon emerged directly from the cheongsam, bearing its claws and fangs as it turned into a streak of light and flew toward her. Downfall of castle and country, activate. Quai's grip on his sword loosened slightly. A smile appeared on his face as he retreated to Lady Care's side. As long as Downfall of Castle and Country was activated, it was a guaranteed hit. I've been locked on. The intense sense of crisis brought by Downfall of Castle and Country caused Shaltir's crimson eyes to clear significantly. Buzz. The white gold light pierced through Shaltir's body like a radio wave. Immediately after, a strange mental ripple spread outward like a wave, and her entire body was enveloped in a layer of milky white radiance. A demon god-class vampire. The charm succeeded. Quais could not hide his excitement. With this vampire, the slain theocracy would gain an extremely powerful combat asset. However, Lady Care, looking at the white radiance surrounding Shaltir, could not help but frown. Quais, don't let your guard down. It seems Downfall of Castle and Country did not successfully charm her. Downfall of Castle and Country was a world-class item. How could it possibly fail? Quais was about to retort when he heard Shaltir's cold, mocking chuckle. Ahahaha, so it's a world-class item. He, if it weren't for the item given to me by my lord, I almost would have fallen into your hands. Impossible. Quais stiffly turned his head towards Shaltir. He saw a deep blue orb floating above her head, continuously emitting a pure white radiance. Just now, was it this pearl that had blocked the charm of Downfall of Castle and Country? Shaltir carefully retrieved the pearl, which was now nearly dim. This was the world barrier, bestowed upon her by Lord Hellant, a divine artifact capable of blocking the negative effects of a world-class item once. Admiration welled up in her heart. If it had not been for this world barrier, would she not have been charmed by Downfall of Castle and Country, and become a lapdog for these low-class humans? Shaltir could not help but start imagining it. If she really became their lapdog, would she not end up facing the Supreme Being? At that thought, Shaltir's gaze instantly turned fierce, and her aura surged violently. You humans actually dare to try to charm me. You deserve to die. At the exact moment she was about to lose control, Hellant's voice rang in her mind. Shaltir, control your emotions. What you need to do now is seize Downfall of Castle and Country. Not far away, beside a crystal mirror. Hellant sighed to Mamanga. This girl, Shaltir. Why can't she focus on the main point? Hellant-san, Perorancino designed her that way. We need to be more patient with her. Or, should we have someone else guide her? Mamanga had returned to his usual mage robes and chuckled helplessly. Demiurge, standing to the side, remained silent, but the bulging veins on his forehead showed he was far from calm. Shaltir has a world-class item right in front of her, yet she needs a Supreme Being's reminder to realize she should seize it. And activating Blood Frenzy from the start. Is she so afraid people will not discover her weakness? Why did she not use her Valkyrie form from the beginning? She absolutely must be properly disciplined by albedo or aura. Right, the world-class item. Shaltir's eyes cleared once more. She looked at Lady Care, her lamprey-like mouth revealing sharp fangs as her aura intensified even further. Gulp. The members of the Black Scripture swallowed in unison. This vampire's aura was too terrifying, as if they were facing a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Seeing this, Quies moved inconspicuously to Lady Care's side and whispered, "My lady, I will summon magic beasts in a moment. Ride one and flee. Do not look back." Lady Care nodded solemnly. She was carrying the legacy of the 6 great gods, the world-class item, downfall of castle and country. Even if she died, it must not be lost. Thinking of running? Shaltir quietly activated a barrier skill, then summoned her pure throwing spear. Her sharp fingertips pointed at the members of the Black Scripture one by one. 1, 2, 3, 15 people in total. Her crimson eyes settled on a priest. "Just now, you were the one who killed my familiars, weren't you? Then you're first. PSST. The moment she spoke, the priest's head was sent flying into the air, and hot blood splashed onto Quies's face. So fast. I could not see her movements at all. Cold sweat poured down Quies's back as he roared, "Everyone, you must protect Lady Care and the safety of downfall of castle and country." Then mana surged from his body, forming more than a dozen magic circles. The magic circles flashed with light, and over a dozen magic beasts manifested within them. Quies panted slightly. Summoning more than a dozen magic beasts in one breath was taxing even for him. He was hailed by the slain theocracy as a one-man army because his class was summoner, capable of calling forth a large number of magic beasts at once, with combat power sufficient to rival an ordinary legion. The moment the magic beasts were summoned, Lady Care quickly mounted a horse-shaped magic beast and sped away. Watching her receding figure, Quies finally let out a sigh of relief. He turned to Shaltir and said, "Now, your opponents are us." After I kill you all, it won't be too late to give chase," Shaltir said with a chuckle. With the barrier in place, she could not escape. Quies scanned the surroundings. There were 12 members of the Black Scripture left, plus his 13 magic beasts. Even if this monster intended to kill them all, it would take some time. His Gale horse would definitely be able to escape the vicinity of Irantal within 5 minutes. At that point, he would use reverse summoning to teleport to Lady Care's side. Not only would he successfully protect the world-class item, he would also survive. Quies's gaze hardened as he looked at those around him, as if prepared for death. "Hold on. We do this for the slain theocracy." "Oh. For the slain theocracy." The members of the Black Scripture lined up, their fanaticism replacing their fear. Squelch. In the very next second, 5 heads were severed in an instant. Blood sprayed everywhere, and the fanatic light in their eyes turned back into fear. Hee so noisy. Insects should learn to keep their mouths shut. Shaltir held her pure throwing spear upside down as she looked at the survivors. Quies silently directed the magic beasts to surround her, continuing to use words to buy time. "Vampire, I don't know what kind of demon god you are, but how dare you trample on life like this?" Shaltir casually killed 3 more members and said with amusement, "Do the lives of insects even count as lives?" Quies clenched his teeth and shouted angrily, "What do you think life is?" Squelch. The last 4 heads were severed. Shaltir yawned in boredom. "All right, I've had enough fun. Time to take the world-class item. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________________Quies's heart pounded wildly as he struggled to suppress his joy. Yes, just like that. Stay unhurried and let Lady Care get farther away. Once she's far enough, I'll use reverse teleportation to escape and leave you, stupid vampire, dumbfounded. Oh, don't worry, she won't get away." Shaltir glanced disdainfully at Quies behind the magic beasts. A coward who only knows how to hide behind magic beasts. "You remind me of someone very annoying." Quies's whole body tensed as he prepared to flee. The vampire before him seemed to loathe that person who resembled him. Her killing intent was almost tangible. Buzz. In the next second, Shaltir's figure vanished from the spot. Before he could even rejoice, she reappeared. Not only that, her hand was clamped around Lady Care's neck, lifting her into the air. Impossible. My gale horse should have carried Lady Care near Irantal by now. Quies hurriedly closed his eyes to sense. Then he stiffly turned his head toward a direction less than a kilometer away. There, he sensed the lingering mana fluctuations of his wind-chasing horse. How could it have died there? Quies was in disbelief. Simple. I set up a barrier. Forget running. No one besides me can even use teleportation magic. Shaltir gripped Lady Care's throat with one hand, admiring the platinum patterns of downfall of castle and country on her body. A world-class item, just like that. Shaltir reached out and touched it. The cool, smooth silk felt incredibly real, not to mention the mana contained within, which far surpassed god-class items. It's a waste on you. Lady Care's deeply wrinkled face made Shaltir slightly annoyed. However, I can't let your blood spill. It would stain downfall of castle and country. Her palm slowly tightened. A crisp crack came from Care's neck, followed by her chest heaving violently and a hoarse, gasping sound from her throat. Before long, her eyes glazed over, and she died completely. Only then did Shaltir strip downfall of castle and country from her body, the excitement in her eyes beyond words. I've snatched a world-class item. Vampire, give the world-class item back. Quies commanded the magic beasts to launch a frantic attack on Shaltir. Watching the magic beasts attack like crazed demons, teeth bared, Shaltir made a casual swipe with the pure throwing spear in her hand. Squelch. More than a dozen magic beasts lost their heads in an instant, their lives extinguished. I'm in a good mood right now, so I'll give you a painless death. Shaltir held the pure throwing spear in one hand and gripped downfall of castle and country in the other as she slowly walked toward Quies. Quies kept retreating while constantly sensing the position of his last magic beast. 500 meters, 800 meters, 1200 meters. A flash of joy crossed his eyes. 1200 meters was beyond the range of the barrier the vampire had just set up. It seemed the barrier was gone. So should he try to take back downfall of castle and country? If he did not, returning to the slain theocracy like this would mean bearing heavy responsibility, and he might even be cut off from future training resources. If he did, he might die at this monster's hands in the next second. Watching Shaltir approach, Quies gritted his teeth and decided to risk it. If my future is gone, so be it, but I only have one life. Shaltir slowly raised the pure throwing spear, preparing to deliver the final blow. Quies silently gathered mana, his reverse teleportation ready to trigger. 7th tier magic, Holy War Spear. A sharp shout rang out from the sky, and both Shaltir and Quies instinctively looked up. They saw the pitch-black night sky suddenly pierced by a beam of white starlight. That starlight streaked down from above, drawing closer and closer, until it finally transformed into a sharp war spear. It smashed straight toward Shaltir. Seeing this, Shaltir hurled the pure throwing spear in her hand toward the descending weapon. The pure throwing spear also turned into a beam of light and shot into the sky. The moment the two war spears met, they exploded in midair like ignited dynamite. Boom! Ugh! Shaltir was blasted back several meters by the shockwave before she managed to steady herself. She clenched downfall of castle and country tightly and roared at her surroundings. Who is it? Under the holy domain God Lord, the third-generation human emissary, Hellant. Shaltir turned toward the voice and saw that someone had appeared beside Quies at some unknown moment. Hellant reached out and pulled the kneeling Quies to his feet, saying with concern, "Are you all right? I sensed a barrier suddenly being placed in the forest, so I came to check. I did not expect." After a brief moment of shock, Quies reacted at once and said to Hellant, she stole the world-class item. Get it back, quickly. Since there was a powerhouse who could contend with this vampire, maybe he could still save his future if he took a gamble. Helen's gaze sharpened as mana condensed in his hand once more. Vampire, hand over the item. Shaltir sneered. Now that I've obtained a world-class item, I don't want to tangle with you anymore. No. She is going to run. Quies gripped his sword and rushed forward. With Hellant by his side, he gained a bit of confidence. But that confidence was not enough to stop Shaltir from escaping. Buzz. To his astonishment, Shaltir's figure vanished from the spot. Quies immediately fell to his knees in despair. In the end, we still couldn't protect it. Hellant stepped forward at the right moment and placed a hand on his shoulder to comfort him. The world-class item. My future. Quies' eyes were filled with grief. Hellant quietly withdrew his hand from his shoulder and asked instead, "Are you from the theocracy? Why are you here?" Hearing this, Quies realized he had accidentally spoken his thoughts aloud. He struggled to maintain his composure, looking at the fallen members of the Black Scripture around him to appear even more mournful. I am the fifth seed of the slain theocracy's Black Scripture, Quies Hazia Quintia. Perhaps because he was truly too sad, he could not help scratching his yellow hair. We received a mission that a demon god had awakened within the kingdom's borders. We originally intended to rely on the world-class item to defeat the demon god. Hellant looked at his hairstyle and hair color, which were identical to Clementine's. Yeah. This guy is Clementine's older brother. And Clementine is currently in Irantal. If I arranged for these siblings to meet, I wonder if they would start fighting. If they did, it could also serve to distance Clementine from this incident. As for this Quies, he had already planned for him to be an audience member for the next act. Thinking of this, a look of pity appeared on Helent's face. On a nearby hill. Shaltir had already returned to her human form. She handed over Downfall of Castle and Country, her charming, lovely face full of anticipation. Lord Mamanga, this is a world-class item. Appraisal. Mamanga cast an appraisal spell. Only after confirming it did he praise her. Shaltir, you did a good job this time. In any case, Nazarick had obtained a world-class item at no cost, and as one of the executors, Shaltir deserved the praise. If it weren't for Lord Helent's world barrier, I might have been charmed. Shaltir rested her chin in her hands, wriggling happily in place. Seeing Shaltir's smug expression, Demiurge ground his teeth audibly. Shaltir, why did you use Blood Frenzy? If Lord Hellant had not provided the world barrier to block the negative effects of the world-class item, Shaltir would have become a sinner of Nazarick. Perhaps a supreme being would even have had to step in personally to retrieve the world-class item. Seeing that Demiurge seemed somewhat angry, Shaltir tilted her head and gave an awkward smile. Because at the beginning, I let someone named Brain Unglaus escape. So I was a bit annoyed, and grind. Demiurge nearly crushed his teeth, the veins on his forehead bulging. Because she was a bit annoyed, she used Blood Frenzy? To make herself even more irrational? Shaltir. Demiurge struggled to suppress his rage. This was beyond ordinary stupidity. Once he finished the tasks at hand, he would have to give her a proper lesson. Enough, Demiurge. Mamanga interrupted him and asked, is the counter-surveillance against the slain theocracy going smoothly? Lord Mamanga, everything is proceeding smoothly. When Shaltir deployed the barrier, the theocracy's observers could no longer monitor this place. Demiurge paused before adding, that human named Quies has a signal source for monitoring magic on him, but it has not been reactivated so far, likely to prevent us from tracing them back. Mamanga knew Demiurge would never let the counter-surveillance fail, but he glanced at Shaltir, who had gone from smug anticipation to dejected self-reproach, and decided to ask the obvious anyway. To Mamanga, Shaltir was more like the daughter of his good friend, Perorancino. When it came to a child, he should be a little more lenient. Shaltir, take downfall of castle and country back to Nazarick and hand it to Albedo for safekeeping. Mamanga then looked toward Hellant in the forest from afar. Hellant had played a major role in obtaining the world-class item this time. Whether it was the decisive action after receiving the news or the pre-prepared, world barrier, he, as the guild master, had not been of much use at all. Though it may be a bit forward, I would like to ask, what is this about a demon god awakening? Hellant's face showed a mix of pity and curiosity. Hellant vaguely remembered that the slain theocracy seemed to have deployed downfall of castle and country for some dragon king. It's the ruined dragon king. Quies looked at the corpses strewn across the ground and at Lady Care, whose clothes had been stripped, his voice strained. We didn't encounter the ruined dragon king, but instead ran into a demon god-level vampire. In Quies' eyes, Shaltir, whom even downfall of castle and country could not control, was the most terrifying demon god he knew. Hellant placed a hand on his shoulder and sighed. Our human race has it hard. The sorcerer king, the ruined dragon king, and now the vampire we met today. It's difficult. So difficult. It's all so difficult. Quies' heart bled. Who had it harder than him? A world-class item had been lost right under his nose. Sigh, forget it. His future was ruined, but if Hellant had not saved him, wait. Quies turned to look at Hellant. It seemed he still had one task left unfinished. The Cardinal of Water, Lord Zinedine, said to make contact and evaluate whether Hellant could be recruited by the slain theocracy. His eyes lit up. If he returned to the theocracy in disgrace, his future would surely be over. But if he brought along a powerful Hellant to join the theocracy, then this mission could end with his merits offsetting his failures. Thinking of this, he hid the eagerness in his eyes and feigned grief. Thank you for saving my life. As fellow humans, we should help one another. This is also the philosophy of human supremacy upheld by the Holy Domain God Lord. Holy Domain God Lord? Quies looked surprised. Speaking of the Holy Domain God Lord, Quies could not help but feel curious. What kind of existence could command the respect of a powerhouse like Hellant, who addressed him as a god? Hellant said the Holy Domain God Lord followed the philosophy of human supremacy. Could he be a deity similar to the 6 great gods? Seeing Quies' surprise, Hellant's handsome face showed helplessness as he let out a sigh. After sleeping for hundreds of years, it seems my god has long been forgotten by the world. If my god could descend upon the world now, then these so-called demon gods and dragon kings would all be purified by him, and humanity could naturally lead a beautiful and prosperous life. From Hellant's words, the Holy Domain God Lord was not in this world? Although Quies really wanted to continue investigating and learning more about the Holy Domain God Lord, it was clearly not the right moment. That damned vampire stole the legacy of the 6 great gods, a world-class item. I must take it back. He noticed the adventurer identification tag on Hellant and said resentfully, Mr. Hellant, I will stay in Irantal for a while as an adventurer to gather information about the vampire. If you discover anything, please be sure to tell me immediately. Adventurer? Hellant subconsciously touched his own identification tag, a thought flashing through his mind. He wants to get close to me. Yes, the look in his eyes when he first saw me was as if he already recognized who I was. It seems the play for the slain theocracy is officially starting to take effect. Wanting to get close to me, that fits my plans perfectly. I was just wondering how to stage the second act for the theocracy. Hellant noticed the fluctuations of monitoring magic on Quies. It was very obvious, left behind by star-gazing 1,000 miles. He decided to play along. I am currently an adventurer in Irantal as well, and coincidentally, I am gathering information on demon gods with my friends. Since our goals are roughly the same, why don't we go together? Hearing this, Quies was overjoyed. Together? Of course. If we do not go together, how can I build a good relationship with you and bring you into the theocracy? He said gratefully, thank you so much. Afterward, following some polite exchanges, and this is? Helen-san had already briefed him last night. The person before them was a very important spectator for the upcoming plan. He was a key link in whether Mammon, Helant, the Holy Domain God Lord, and the others could formally step onto the world stage. This is Quies, a friend I met last night, Helant said with a smile as he introduced them. This is Mammon, Mino, and Nabe, and these are the members of the Swords of Darkness. Hello, everyone, Quies greeted them, while sizing up the group at the same time. First of all, the Swords of Darkness are probably not Helent's teammates. Mammon's side is. He lingered his gaze on him for a moment. After all, standing nearly 3 meters tall and clad in magnificent full-body armor, he gave off a faint sense of pressure. Beside him, the one with the cold expression who did not look at him kindly must be Nabe. She did not seem easy to get along with. I have to find a way to blend into their circle, otherwise it will be hard to build a good relationship with Helant. Quies turned his gaze toward Mino. This petite and cute white-haired girl seemed to be constantly looking at Helant, her eyes filled with adoration. I will use her as the breakthrough point. Quies gave a polite smile and remarked casually, Miss Mino must be Helent's lover. You truly make a well-matched couple. You noticed, Mino said, a look of joy appearing on her pretty face. She skipped over to Helen's side and hugged his arm. We are lovers. Right, Helant? Feeling his arm being wrapped in Mino's not-so-soft but ample bosom, Helant smiled. Judging by Mino's reaction, Quies breathed a sigh of relief. He had made a good start. It should not be difficult to integrate with them now. However, it was not wise to talk too much, as it might overshadow the host. Seeing Quies fall silent, Helant pinched Mino's little cheek, thinking, another loli who belongs at the same table as Shaltir. He turned to Mamanga and asked, Mammon, what are you all planning to do? I heard from Fyria that there's a magical beast nearby known as the Wise King of the Forest. I'm planning to see if I can tame it, Mammon replied. Last night, Helant had told him that as a ruler, he needed to have his own ideas and plans. Mamanga felt that was right. He could not always rely on Helant, or the dual kingship plan would never truly take shape. Even though scheming and calculating were far beyond a former corporate drone like him, he still had to brace himself and try. He would start with the simplest thing, raising the prestige of the Mammon identity to earn more money. Seabass and the others are still gathering intelligence in the royal capital. If Mammon can tame a powerful magical beast, it will surely boost his adventurer rank and bring in more money. Such a simple idea. Helant will not laugh at me, will he? Mamanga felt his thinking was ridiculously shallow for the ruler of Nazarick. Mammon, with your strength, you can definitely tame the Wise King of the Forest, Helant encouraged him. Seeing Helen's sincere affirmation, Mamanga felt a little dazed. He really did not laugh at me. Mamanga, go find your fated mount. Helant was already looking forward to the image of Mamanga riding a hamster. The group soon arrived at the edge of the forest. Layers of leaves spread across the treetops, blocking the sunlight from entering the woods. The Wise King of the Forest possesses extremely high intelligence and will likely not submit to anyone. Mr. Mammon, please do not push yourself. Nfiria looked toward the depths of the forest with a complicated expression. In truth, he was quite reluctant for Mammon to tame the Wise King of the Forest. There was only one reason. Carne Village was protected from magical beast incursions by the Wise King of the Forest. If Maman tamed it, life in Carne village would become much harder. Sigh, what am I thinking? The wise king of the forest is a terrifying magical beast. How could it be tamed so easily? Thank you for the reminder. I understand, Mamanga said as his imposing figure passed by Nymphyria, carrying with it a faint aura of determination. That aura made Nymphyria lose heart at once. Mr. Maman, please do not tame it. Mamanga walked quietly to the entrance, then turned to Hellant and sent a private message. Aura says she wants to see you. No, I still have to keep an eye on Quies. Hellant glanced at the little blonde guy beside him. He had already sensed Aura's presence, but to prevent Quies from insisting on following them and ruining things, he decided not to meet her for now. Watching the backs of Mamanga and Nabe as they entered the forest, Quies asked curiously, Hellant, doesn't Mr. Maman need any help taming the wise king of the forest? As for the wise king of the forest, Quies had already gathered some information during his time in the slain theocracy. It was a highly intelligent hero-class magical beast that was relatively friendly toward humans. In other words, to make the wise king of the forest submit, one's strength had to at least reach the hero class or above. Quies was also quite curious about Maman, whom Hellant called a friend. Just how strong was he, and could he also join the theocracy? It's just a magical beast. Have faith in Maman's strength, Hellant said lazily as he sat cross-legged on the grass, pulling Mino into his arms. Seeing this, Quies tactfully walked over to the Sword of Darkness team and struck up a conversation. Hellant, I sensed Aura's presence, Mino whispered into Hellant's ear with a mischievous smile. She's very angry right now. Aren't you going to comfort her as her father? Hellant did not rush to reply. Instead, he greedily breathed in Mino's fragrance. Her scent was not as rich and suggestive as Albedo's. It was more like the light and pleasant fragrance of orchids. After savoring it for a moment, he spoke slowly. It's been a while since I returned to Nazarick. Not just Aura, I probably have not seen Mare or Herix for a long time either. And there's someone else who's been thinking about you a lot. Mino rubbed her head against Hellant's chest, her tone filled with triumph. Albedo is a succubus, after all. Making her wait for someone would probably drive her crazy. Mino had long held a grudge against Albedo over the previous breast-smothering incident. The thought of her longing day and night, unable to sleep, made Mino want to laugh. The next time they met, she would definitely mock Albedo. Who is it that stays by Hellant's side every day? It's so hard to guess. Inside the forest. Mamanga stood there helplessly, looking at the massive hamster in front of him and feeling a sudden urge to laugh. You are the wise king of the forest. That is correct. I am the wise king of the forest, indeed. You must be frightened by my mighty physique, indeed. The wise king of the forest glared at Mamanga with its beady eyes, trying to scare him away with its appearance. Indeed. This strange verbal habit caught Mamanga's attention. He looked the hamster up and down and asked, Is your species called the Jungarian hamster? Precisely. The wise king of the forest waved its two short paws in front of its chest and looked at Mamanga expectantly. Could it be that you have seen others of my kind? It was incredibly excited. This was the first time someone had recognized its species. Knowing the name meant he must have seen them. That meant he surely knew where its other kin were, right? Please, sir, you must tell me where my kin are. After all, if one does not produce offspring, one is a hamster in vain. Looking at the hamster's expectant expression, Mamanga helplessly lowered the sword in his hand and said calmly, Sorry, I have only heard of this type of hamster. Furthermore, the size difference between you and the Jungarian hamsters I know is simply too great. Hearing this, the wise king of the forest sighed and said dejectedly, I see. I thought there might be a chance to mate and reproduce. Suddenly, it dropped to all fours. Magic power surged through its body, and its full aura pressed down on Mamanga. In that case, you shall pay the price for disturbing me. Facing the wise king of the forest's aura, Momonga remained unmoved. Instead, he helplessly weighed the sword in his hand. Jungarian hamsters are quite rare. Whether as a way to make a name for myself or as a pet kept in Nazarick's collection, it would be quite good. He slowly raised his head and looked at the wise king of the forest, which was still baring its fangs and claws but showed no killing intent, and silently added in his heart. It also has a very gentle temperament, making it very suitable as a pet. Human, you must be terrified by the great wise king of the forest. As long as you leave this forest, I will. Before it could finish speaking, it saw the helmet of the person before it vanish into points of light, revealing a skeletal skull beneath. An undead. Too terrifying. Before it could react any further, it saw the undead before it raise his sword and softly chant, "Despair Aura." A dark mist instantly emerged from the blade, lonely and eerie. Tears streamed down the wise king of the forest's face. Its heart pounded wildly, and a crisis warning from its instincts screamed in its mind. I am going to die. 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 Level 1. As the undead spoke again, the sense of crisis the wise king of the forest felt plummeted. Seeing this, it did not hesitate for even a second and immediately knelt on the ground. Sir, please do not kill me. I am willing to submit, indeed. There was a saying etched into its instincts, which, if translated, would be, the wise submit to fate. It was very useful and could save its life at a critical moment. Momonga withdrew the aura and looked down at it. From now on, your name is Hamsuk. Yes, master. Hamsuk immediately stood up and bowed with its short little paws. At this moment, Aura, who had been sitting under a tree, offered her congratulations listlessly. Congratulations on taming the magic beast, Lord Momonga. She leaned in the shade of the tree, pinching blades of grass with both hands, and looked toward the edge of the forest with a hint of gloom in her expression. Seeing Aura's wilted state, Nabe could not help but sit beside her, deeply concerned. Lady Aura, are you feeling unwell? I'm just in a bad mood. Aura threw herself into Nabe's embrace, buried her head in Nabe's chest, and made a muffled sound. I finally got to come out, but I can't see father. It's so frustrating. She and her father were only half a forest apart, yet they could not meet. Nabe held Aura and comforted her. Lady Aura, please endure it for a while. Everything must prioritize the Supreme Being's plan. Aura rubbed fretfully in Nabe's arms. She remembered the person Shaltir had mentioned to her when she was preparing to go out this morning. Yes, was it? It's this guy who's preventing me from seeing father. Fine, I'll remember you. Momonga looked at Aura's frustrated yet cute appearance and could not help but remark, Aura really is worthy of being a child created by Bukabukagama. She's truly adorable. Hellant really got lucky, picking up such a cute daughter as soon as he arrived in this different world. Aura, things on my side and Hellant's side will be over soon. Then you'll be able to see each other every day. Momonga's words made Aura's eyes light up. She raised her head straight from Nabe's chest and said excitedly, Lord Momonga, really? Momonga nodded and smiled. Of course. Just a few more days. According to Hellant San's intelligence, Kajiat from the Zuranorn organization would hold the Spiral of Death ritual in Irantal to turn it into a land of the dead. When the time came, he and Hellant San would add a little something to the ritual and finally appear as saviors. By then, the first step of Hellant San's dual kingship plan would be considered complete. Is this the wise king of the forest? It's so mighty. Ninya looked at the oversized hamster in front of her and could not help expressing her admiration. She turned to Maman and said worshipfully, Mr. Maman is truly amazing, to be able to tame such a powerful magic beast. Mork and the others also chimed in. Yes, Look at this massive physique. Look at those fierce eyes. It's practically the king of magic beasts. The praise from the crowd made Hamsuk's beady eyes shine even brighter, and it said righteously, "My name is now Hamsuk, and I am willing to die for my lord." Indeed. As expected of the wise king of the forest. It can even talk. Ninya and the others offered another round of praise. Quayes, being a summoner, looked at Hamsuk with burning eyes and muttered to himself, "A hero-class magic beast. If only I could sign a contract with it." This praise made Mamanga extremely embarrassed. Where was it mighty? Where was it fierce? He sent a private message to Hellant. "Hellant-san, is there something wrong with their sense of aesthetics? A hamster like Hamsuk does not fit the words fierce and mighty at all." "It fits, it fits." Hellant's shoulders trembled slightly as he tried hard not to laugh out loud. They all sincerely believe Hamsuk is fierce and mighty. Mamanga did not believe it and turned to look at the cold and elegant Nabe. A serious beauty like her would surely tell the truth. "Nabe, what is your opinion of Hamsuk? Tell me the truth." In response to the Supreme Being's inquiry, Nabe carefully examined the smug Hamsuk and chose her words with care. "Lord Amo. Mr. Mammon, I believe Hamsuk is extremely mighty." Phew. After hearing Nabe's evaluation, Mamanga let out a long sigh, his heart finally giving up. The people of this world must have a misunderstanding of the words mighty and fierce. While everyone was crowding around Hamsuk, Mamanga noticed that Nfiria did not join the others in praising it. He kept his head lowered, looking preoccupied, forming a sharp contrast with the surrounding enthusiasm. Could it be that he also thinks Hamsuk should be described as cute rather than mighty? With this thought in mind, Mamanga walked over to him and said thoughtfully, "Nfiria, you seem to have something on your mind." Hearing this, Nfiria looked up at Mamanga. His eyes, hidden beneath his hair, were filled with tension and worry. "Mr. Mammon, please don't take away the wise king of the forest, okay?" As he spoke, he lacked confidence, and his voice grew weaker and weaker. However, the weakest people present were silver-rank adventurers, and they heard his words clearly, casting curious and puzzled glances his way. Nabe's pretty face turned cold as she glared at Nfiria. This leech actually wants the Supreme Being to give up a captured magical beast. Mino tugged at Hellant's sleeve curiously and whispered, "What's wrong with him?" Hellant chuckled. "He's worried about his little Henry." "I thought you were going to say Hamsuk doesn't deserve the words mighty and fierce at all." Not getting the answer he expected, Mamanga fell silent for a moment before reacting and asking, "Can you tell me why?" Nfiria said heavily, "If the wise king of the forest is taken away, won't the magical beasts it used to restrain start attacking the village again? Especially Carne village, where Henry is." "Theoretically, yes." Hamsuk nodded its large furry head, confirming Nfiria's words. After receiving a definitive answer, the gloom in Nfiria's eyes deepened. "I cannot grant your request." Mamanga's words made Nfiria's heart sink to the bottom, as if he could already see Henry being attacked and killed by magical beasts. "But I promise that for a period of time, I will have Hamsuk clear out the magical beasts in the forest that pose a threat to the village." Nfiria instantly raised his head, his eyes lighting up. "Really?" Mamanga nodded in affirmation. Carne village had been saved by him in the name of Ain Zulgaun. How could he let it be plagued by magical beasts? Moreover, the girl Henry still held his goblin general's horn, and he was looking forward to her giving him a little surprise. There was no way he would just stand by and do nothing. After receiving Mamanga's positive response, Nfiria was in a very good mood. He turned to Hellant and said respectfully, "Mr. Hellant, I must apologize to you." Hellant raised an eyebrow. "An apology?" Nfiria continued, "Actually, I lied to you. My original purpose in hiring you and Mr. Mammon was for the potion." "Potion?" CorruptElf pricked up his ears at once. Potions were strategic materials even in the slain theocracy. Hellant took out a bright red potion from his storage space, held it up in front of everyone, and asked knowingly, "For this?" Seeing the blood-red liquid in the bottle, CorruptElf's eyes widened in shock. God's blood. The liquid was as pure red as blood. This was a potion that had only existed in the era of the 6 great gods. Its healing effect was so exaggerated that it could instantly restore someone on the brink of death to full health. It was one of the slain theocracy's most precious treasures, second only to divine artifacts. But how could Hellant have it? CorruptElf suppressed his confusion and excitement and continued to listen quietly. "Yes, it's this bright red potion." Nymphyria could not help taking a few steps forward, unconsciously reaching out to touch it. Clack. Nabe's face turned cold as she blocked Nymphyria's hand with her scabbard. "Tapeworm, take your dirty hands away." "Nabe, no need to be so tense." Hellant gestured for Nabe to lower her scabbard and said casually, "It's just a bottle of potion." "Catch." Hellant tossed the potion straight to Nymphyria. In midair, the bright red liquid sloshed inside the bottle, reflecting an enchanting sheen. Nymphyria hurriedly caught it and complained, "Hellant-san, don't throw something this precious around so casually." Even CorruptElf at the side looked pained. This was a treasure second only to a divine artifact. What if it broke? Is it really that precious? Hellant glanced indifferently at the potion in Nymphyria's hand and said, "I can make as many of these potions as I want." "Make?" Nymphyria and CorruptElf both showed shocked expressions. Being able to make as many of such precious things as he wanted? He must be joking, right? Seeing their looks of disbelief, Nabe's knuckles turned white as she gripped her sword, the hilt creaking. "Reckless water flies. How dare you doubt the Supreme Being?" Seeing the skeptical and confused looks from Nymphyria, CorruptElf, and the others, Hellant calmly took out the medicinal herbs needed for potion refining from his spatial backpack. "These are the herbs used for recovery potions." Nymphyria carefully identified the herbs Hellant had brought out and found that aside from their high quality, there was nothing else unusual about them. "Well then, I'm going to start." Pure white mana in Hellant's hand wrapped around the herbs like flowing water, and with a single thought. "World Alchemist, activate." As Hellant's thought arose, the herbs wrapped in mana were instantly refined and condensed into drops of liquid in various colors. Once the herbs were fully refined, the liquid seemed to take on a life of their own, intertwining and circling in Hellant's hand. They slowly blended from their initial multicolored state into a bright red. Hellant casually took a potion bottle, filled it with the liquid, and shook it in front of everyone. "It's as simple as that." Puff. 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 Nymphyria's chest heaved violently, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was a pharmacist. He understood better than anyone what this represented. A pharmacist who could refine God's blood had to be the greatest pharmacist in this world. Huff. 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 God's blood, whose value is second only to a divine artifact, was just made like that? CorruptElf's heart pounded wildly, his gaze fixed solely on the potion in Hellant's hand. Hellant suddenly handed the potion to CorruptElf and said sincerely, "I'll give this bottle of potion to you. It should come in handy in the future." CorruptElf held the potion with both hands. Even without opening it, he could sense the immense vitality contained within. The real thing. His gaze toward Hellant grew increasingly fervent. A pharmacist who could refine God's blood. If he could be persuaded to join the slain theocracy, not only could the matter of my losing a world-class item be downplayed, it could even be exchanged for more resources. The slain theocracy could also use Hellant's hands to reach a new level of strength. At that time, those demon gods and dragon lords would face an unprecedentedly powerful human force. Until nightfall, CorruptElf lay in the room Nymphyria had prepared, his heart still racing, unable to calm down for a long time. Helent's value was simply too great. Setting aside his combat power, the mere fact that he could easily create God's blood potions was enough for the slain theocracy to treat him with the highest reverence. Quies's fingertips tapped repeatedly against the wooden table, making a soft tapping sound. How can I get him to join the theocracy? As he pondered this, a strange fluctuation of mana caught his attention. A sorrowful sigh echoed in his mind. Quies, downfall of castle and country, was stolen from your hands. He was extremely familiar with this voice. It belonged to Zinedine, the high priest of the Water Illumination Codex. He hurriedly replied with respect, downfall of castle and country was snatched away by a demon god-level vampire. Everyone involved in this operation, except for me, has died in battle. Quies nervously clenched his trousers. As a member of the Black Scripture, he knew very well that Thousand Leagues astrologer could definitely monitor everything that had happened at the time. You did not let Kali use downfall of castle and country? Zinedine was extremely puzzled. With Quies's judgment, he should have decisively used the charm of downfall of castle and country to control the vampire. Quies frowned slightly. Had Thousand Leagues astrologer not observed that part? My lord, that demon god-level vampire was able to resist the control of downfall of castle and country, he explained. Resist the control of downfall of castle and country. Zinedine was shocked, his voice rising. One had to know that downfall of castle and country was a world-class item left behind by the 6 great gods. Aside from the 6 great gods themselves and powerhouses at the true Dragon King level, immunity was basically impossible. Could it be a player? Thousand Leagues astrologer had only just begun observing when her vision was blocked by a barrier. Zinedine had not seen the full picture and did not dare to make a rash judgment. He took a deep breath and tried to steady his mind. All right. I was somewhat mentally prepared for this. Back when they had voted on the decision to charm the Catastrophe Dragon Lord, he had been the one to cast a dissenting vote. However, those other old fellows might not be willing to take responsibility. In that case, the unlucky one would be Quies, the executor. Are you with Helent? When the Thousand Leagues astrologer regained her line of sight, she only saw what happened after Helent forced that vampire back. Yes, I am trying to build a good relationship with him. Then tell me your thoughts. I believe Helent is a powerful individual whose core philosophy is human supremacy. Quies emphasized the words human supremacy heavily. Zinedine's eyes lit up. The slain theocracy's guiding principle had always been human supremacy. By saying that Helent followed this philosophy, Quies was indirectly stating that this person was absolutely reliable and could be recruited into the theocracy. Quies paused, took out the potion Helent had given him during the day, and said excitedly, not only that, I believe Helent's strategic value is definitely greater than his combat power. He is a pharmacist who can refine God's blood. Refine God's blood? Zinedine's tone became urgent. Do you realize what you are saying? God's blood was universally acknowledged as a potion that could not be replicated. The countless genius apothecaries of the theocracy could at best produce something with a similar purple hue, yet its effects were not even half of God's blood. Now Quies was telling him that someone could refine God's blood? Who was he, one of the 6 great gods? Lord Zinedine, I have a potion he refined right here. Quies placed the potion on the table. He knew that with Thousand Leagues astrologer's ability, she would definitely be able to see this bottle of potion. Sure enough, a fluctuation of mana appeared again, clearly locking onto the potion in front of Quies. Slain Theocracy, Water Illumination Codex Headquarters. Thousand Leagues astrologer held the crystal ball and respectfully presented it to Zinedine. Looking at the blood-red potion inside the crystal ball, Zinedine immediately straightened and said urgently, test it. Within the image in the crystal ball. Screech. Quies drew his sword without hesitation and cut off his left thumb. Blood immediately flowed out, but the searing pain did not interrupt his movements. He tossed the sword aside with his right hand, picked up the potion, opened the bottle, and took 2 precious sips. Immediately afterward, the bleeding from Kwai's severed left thumb stopped. Granulation tissue rapidly formed at the wound, followed by the regeneration of bone. In less than a few seconds, his left thumb had been restored to its original state. Zinedine held the crystal ball, carefully examining Kwai's left thumb in the image. After confirming that it had fully recovered, he looked at the potion in his hand with burning fervor. Regenerating severed limbs. This is indeed something only God's blood can achieve. It was not that other methods could not do it, but to regenerate a limb with a potion alone, only the God's blood left behind by the 6 great gods could truly accomplish such a feat. Then this Hellant, just as Kwais had said, possessed extremely high strategic value. If Hellant came to the theocracy and mass-produced such potions, the survival rate of humanity's top combatants would definitely rise steadily. Within 100 years, humans would surely be qualified to challenge all non-human races except the dragon race. However, he quickly calmed himself. As the head of the Water Illumination Codex in charge of intelligence, he had to remain clear-headed at all times. According to existing intelligence, Hellant was a powerhouse who had mastered Tier 7 magic. Although all his actions suggested he was someone who followed the philosophy of human supremacy. It was precisely this, human supremacy, whose source lay with the Holy Domain God Lord. With the existence of the Holy Domain God Lord, Hellant might not necessarily join the slain theocracy. Zinedine suddenly remembered that the Sorcerer King who had wiped out the Sunlit Scripture had seemed wary of the Holy Domain God Lord, to the extent that he did not deliver a killing blow to Hellant. Then who exactly was this Holy Domain God Lord? With a powerhouse like Hellant as his subordinate, why was his name so unknown? Could it be a player? He continued, did Hellant mention the Holy Domain God Lord? He mentioned it, but did not explain clearly, Kwais said after thinking it over. According to him, the Holy Domain God Lord does not seem to be in this world, or perhaps cannot appear at this time. Zinedine rubbed his aching temples and said, continue to build a good relationship with Hellant. It would be best to probe indirectly and find out what kind of person the Holy Domain God Lord is. Then he paused and added, by the way, the loss of a world-class item means your responsibility is immense, no matter what. Kwais nodded heavily. This was what he cared about most. It concerned whether he still had a future. Zinedine looked at the nervous Kwais in the crystal ball and said, your sister, Clementine, is in Irantal. If you can retrieve the crown of wisdom she stole, I will be confident in persuading those other old fellows to protect you. Clementine? The crown of wisdom. Kwais' eyes lit up instantly. If he could retrieve the crown of wisdom, even if he could not bring Hellant back to the theocracy, he could still clear part of his guilt. My dear sister, just wait for me. The next night, the carriage fully laden with supplies rolled slowly back into Irantal under the glow of street lanterns. The wheels creaked over cobblestones, and the faint scent of dried herbs and road dust clung to the air. Nfiria stood on the driver's bench, waving with a bright smile. Mr. Hellant, Mr. Mammon, I'll head back first to unload everything. All right, Mammon replied, glancing down at the plump hamster beneath him and the circle of wide-eyed onlookers. You and the Swords of Darkness go ahead. Hellant and I will stop by the Adventurers Guild first. He sighed helplessly. To register Hamsuk. Hellant caught the embarrassed tone and had to bite back a grin. Mamanga, armored as the Dark Warrior. Perched awkwardly atop the massive, fluffy wise king of the forest like some oversized child on a pony ride. The contrast was absurd. Hellant, I'll go straight to Nfiria's house and wait for you there, Kwais said, stepping up beside him and nodding toward the carriage. They've got a mountain of supplies, I might as well lend a hand. Plus, it'll help build rapport locally before I start gathering intel. Of course, that was half the truth. Quies's real goal was slipping into the theocracy's quiet intelligence channels in the city. His sister Clementine, unhinged, unpredictable, was still out there somewhere. If she'd bolted with the crown of wisdom to another city, the fallout could be catastrophic. He needed eyes and ears, fast. "Sure, go ahead," Hellant said easily, watching Quies climb aboard. As the carriage trundled off, a commotion stirred behind them. Mamanga, still mounted on Hamsuk. Through a growing crowd of merchants, guards, and curious kids, all murmuring in awe. "Wow, what kind of magical beast is that? Looks so majestic. Look at the size of it, and those eyes. Definitely a king among beasts. And the warrior riding it? Heroic as anything." Hellant couldn't hold back the laugh. Mamanga riding a giant hamster. The image was priceless. Mamanga seemed to feel the weight of every stare. He dismounted with as much dignity as possible and strode toward Hellant, sending a private message through their link. "Hellant-san, I've lined up the actors on my end. We can start the plan." Hellant nodded once, and the two moved toward the Adventurers Guild in silent agreement. Mino and Nabe fell in step behind them, cloaks whispering against the night air. Quies sat on the carriage's edge, breathing in the sharp herbal fragrance wafting from the cloth bags. His mind churned. How do I catch Clementine, Windstride herself? His sister had long since crossed into hero-class territory. Her speed was legendary in the theocracy, fast enough to earn that exclusive moniker. Aside from Zeshi Zetsumiai and the Godkin captain, no one could match her when she pushed her martial arts to the limit. Catching her meant outthinking her, not outrunning her. Creak. The carriage rolled to a smooth stop outside the apothecary. Nfiria hopped down and headed straight for the door. "We're here. Everyone, help me carry the supplies inside." The Swords of Darkness started unloading crates. Quies jumped down too, grabbing a heavy sack. Might as well commit to the role. He'd worry about Clementine tomorrow. Worst case, he'd rope Hellant and his companions into helping corner her. Could she really escape that lineup? It's not like I'll run into her right now, right? Inside the dim apothecary, the thick, cloying smell of dried herbs hung heavy, grating on Clementine's nerves. She paced the hallway, two short cones spinning in her hands, carving cold silver flashes through the shadows. This was her second night waiting here. "Nfiria, why'd you have to run off to Carne Village? Why couldn't you just stay put and let me catch you easy?" And he'd hired Hellant of all people. What rotten luck. She remembered Hellant mentioning his escort job to Carne that night in the tavern, his fair, handsome face, more noble than an adventurer. The memory made her teeth grind. No taste at all. Couldn't he pick someone else? Hellant of Hellant. She muttered it through clenched teeth. If Nfiria hadn't left, she'd have sealed the deal with Kajiat by now, claimed the modified magic. Her fingers brushed the sage's crown in the pouch at her waist, a relic she'd snatched for this very purpose. With it, Kajiat would trigger Zuranorn's bloodline atavism ritual. Her diluted godkin blood would surge, purity leaping forward in one brutal step, maybe even reaching awakened godkin levels, rivaling the elites back home. Just the thought sent a thrill through her. If I'm lucky, I might climb as high as Zeshi Zetsumiai herself. Then came the creak of carriage wheels outside. A man's voice, sounding exactly like Quies, called, "Nfiria, where should these herbs go?" "In the shop." Clementine's grip tightened on her cones until her knuckles whitened. Her crimson eyes flared with dangerous light. "Quies? Here in the kingdom?" No, had to be a coincidence, someone with a similar voice. "Fine. I'll start with you." Creak. The door swung open. Quies stepped inside, blonde hair catching the moonlight, a sack of herbs slung over his shoulder. Clementine froze mid-pace. The cones nearly slipped from her fingers. "Quies, it really is you, why are you here?" He turned at the familiar voice. Through the dim light, he saw her, staring in disbelief from the hallway. "Clementine." Joy exploded across his face. He drew his sword in a fluid motion and shouted, "Hand over the crown of wisdom." "Hand it over?" "Like hell." Clementine scanned the room in an instant. Enclosed space, narrow hallway, perfect for a summoner like Quies to box her in, call beasts, overwhelm her with numbers. No time to fight fair. She bolted for the window. "Mr. Quies, something wrong?" Nymphyria and the Swords of Darkness crowded the doorway, jostling Quies off balance. "Now. Flow acceleration. Greater flow acceleration." She blurred into motion, wind howling in her wake. One kick shattered the window in a spray of glass, and she vanished into the night. Crash. What happened? The Swords of Darkness and Nymphyria froze, weapons half-drawn, staring at the broken frame. Quies sighed, shoulders slumping. "You all stay here." He sprinted after her trail. In the moonlit streets of Irantal, Clementine leaped rooftop to rooftop, agile as a shadow. "Ugh. Quies, you're stickier than dog shit." Not far behind, Quies rode a summoned griffin, wings cutting the air as he pursued relentlessly. "Clementine, hand over the crown and I'll let you go." "In your dreams." She activated another burst of martial arts. Wind stride. Whoosh. Sonic booms cracked the night as she kicked off empty air and vanished from sight. "Don't run." Quies ground his teeth in frustration and ordered the griffin to fly higher so he would not lose sight of her. Quies circled high above Irantal, the griffin's powerful wings cutting through the cold night wind. His gaze stayed locked on the figure below, Clementine sprinting like a silver streak through the moonlit streets. She held her short cones horizontally in front of her, body low and streamlined, transforming into an arrow shot from an invisible bow. Under the pale moonlight, the steel tips flashed with cold, razor-sharp glints. Whoosh! The air parted with a sharp, booming whistle that echoed off the rooftops. From above, Quies could only track her as a thin white line weaving between buildings at impossible speed. As expected of Windstride, he thought grimly. Even knowing her reputation didn't make watching it any less frustrating. The biting wind stung his face, numbing his cheeks. The griffin beneath him beat its golden wings steadily, keen eyes never losing the target. Once Hellant finds me, I'll have him help corner her. Pin her from both sides, she can't outrun everyone. Just as the thought crossed his mind, Clementine vaulted onto the top of a tall bell tower and turned to face him, cloak snapping in the downdraft. Huh. Quies frowned and guided the griffin closer, hovering directly in front of her. What tricks are you playing at now? He demanded, voice stern over the wind. The griffin's wings ruffled her short blonde hair and sent her cloak billowing. Clementine leaned casually against the stone railing, a mischievous, triumphant smile curling her lips. Oh my dear brother, you actually dared chase me all this way. The smugness in her tone set his teeth on edge. Something was wrong. He drew his sword in a smooth motion, point leveled at her chest. What do you mean by that? Even with steel aimed at her throat, her smile only widened, wicked and delighted. She extended one pale finger and pointed lazily toward the distant apothecary. Since you're busy chasing me, what do you think will happen to Nymphyria? Nymphyria? What did the pharmacist have to do with any of this? Quies' confusion deepened, but caution kept him rooted. He didn't dare close the distance, not yet. Seeing his hesitation, Clementine's crimson eyes sparkled with amusement. Friendly reminder. Nymphyria's special talent lets him use any magic item, no matter the restrictions. The words hit like a slap. Realization crashed over Quies in an icy wave. That was why she'd been waiting at the apothecary. Clementine needed Nymphyria to activate the Crown of Wisdom, whatever item she'd stolen that required unrestricted use. And if she'd abandoned the chase so easily, she wasn't alone. Quies stared at her, jaw clenched. "Who is helping you?" Clementine ignored the question, glancing up at the bell tower's clock face. "After dragging you around for so long, Cagiet should have succeeded by now." "Cagiet?" Quies' composure cracked. He'd studied the mission dossier thoroughly. Cagiet, former Zeranorn operative, plotting for years. Intelligence pegged him as dangerously ambitious. For the Spiral of Death ritual, Clementine added sweetly, "All he's missing is the Crown of Wisdom." "You gave it to him?" Quies' voice rose, incredulous. He was teetering on the edge of fury. If it were anyone else, he'd have written Nymphyria off as collateral. As long as the crown stayed out of Cagiet's hands, the city could be saved. But this was Clementine, obsessive, manic, utterly unpredictable since childhood. She'd hand over a world-altering artifact on a whim if it amused her. Watching her brother's face twist through shock, rage, and helpless frustration filled Clementine with pure delight. She twirled one short cone idly between her fingers. Turning an entire city into a land of the dead, sounds like quite a bit of fun, doesn't it? Madwoman. The word escaped Quies like a curse. He snapped the reins, the griffin banked hard and dove toward the apothecary at full speed, wings thundering. Clementine watched him shrink into the distance, her triumphant smile widening into something almost feral. "Do you really think I'm that stupid?" She reached into her storage pouch with casual confidence. Of course I'd keep the Crown of Wisdom on me to personally pro." Her hand closed on empty air. The smile froze on her face. She rummaged frantically, then again, digging deeper. "Wait, where's the Crown of Wisdom?" A cold knot formed in her stomach. Could Cagiet have stolen it? Inside Nymphyria's apothecary. The Swords of Darkness and Nymphyria stood tense in the dim room. Ninya stared at the shattered window, brow furrowed. "Did any of you actually see who escaped?" Nymphyria shook his head slowly. "Too fast. Just a blur." Suddenly the lantern light dimmed, swallowed by creeping black mist. A foul, choking stench of rotting flesh rolled in, thick enough to coat the tongue. From the shadows came a raspy, aged voice. "Clementine really is unreliable. Guess I have to handle this myself after all." The Swords of Darkness moved instantly, forming a protective ring around Nymphyria. Swords rasped free, Ninya raised her staff. "Who are you? Show yourself." Peter barked. A bunch of weaklings." Cagiet stepped slowly into view, skeletal frame draped in dark robes, followed by two hulking zombies, muscle-bound corpses reeking of decay so strong it stung the eyes. "Clementine, that madwoman, didn't keep her word," Cagiet muttered, irritation clear. "We agreed to capture them together, and she stood me up. If she didn't have the Crown of Wisdom, the key to casting 7th-tier magic, he'd never have bothered with her unstable ass." His gaze settled on Nymphyria, noting the matching hair color. A sneer twisted his thin lips. "As long as she still craves that bloodline atavism magic, I'm not worried. She'll hand over the crown eventually." The zombies lumbered closer, stench worsening with every step. Ninya gripped her staff tighter, summoning her courage. "A necromancer? What do you want with us?" "What do I want?" Cagiet raised one bony hand, dark magic already coiling around his fingers. "The same thing I've always wanted. A city of the dead." He fixed his eyes on Ninya, the little magic caster, and prepared the killing spell. One burst, and her head would pop like overripe fruit. Thud. Before the magic could release, Ninya crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Fainted from fear? Khajiit started to sneer, then froze. One by one, the swords of darkness and Nympharia collapsed. Thud. Thud. Even the two massive zombies toppled sideways like felled trees, limbs twitching once before going still. A chill raced down Khajiit's spine. Even the undead can faint. Before he could react, his own vision blurred. Eyelids grew impossibly heavy. Consciousness slipped away like sand through fingers. Thud. He slumped to the floorboards. In the last fading moment before darkness claimed him, he heard two soft voices, one timid and childlike. Lord Mayor, the crown of wisdom has been stolen. Thank you for your hard work, Hanzo. So she's Ninya. Father specifically instructed that she must not die. That was close, that was, very close. After an unknown stretch of time, the rotten, pungent stench of old corpses crept back into Khajiit's nostrils, pulling him slowly toward consciousness. What happened? He forced himself up from the cold stone floor, heavy eyelids prying open as he battled the lingering fog of drowsiness. He was back in the familiar catacomb beneath Irantal. Dim, damp, lit by flickering ethereal blue torches that cast long, wavering shadows. An enormous, intricate magic circle dominated the spacious floor, its glowing lines pulsing faintly like veins. At the very center of the circle, Nympharia Baelar floated limply in midair, unconscious, blonde hair hanging across his face. Beside him stood a short dark elf girl dressed in a frilled skirt and white stockings, head tilted as she examined something in her small hands. Khajiit shook his head sharply, trying to clear the haze. When was Nympharia captured? And who is this child? The dark elf didn't acknowledge him. Khajiit staggered forward. Hey! Answer me. How exactly is this thing supposed to be used? The girl's voice was soft, timid, almost childlike, the kind that invited bullying. She turned the hairnet-like artifact over in her fingers, brow furrowed in innocent confusion. The crown of wisdom. Khajiit's heart lurched when he recognized it. Wasn't this in Clementine's possession? Who is this elf child? I should just snatch it. No. Something's wrong here. The situation is too strange. His mind gradually sharpened. Suppressing the urge to lunge, he spoke with forced patience. Little girl. I'm a boy. Little boy. That is the crown of wisdom. It only activates when placed on Nympharia's head. As he spoke, he noticed the ears, pointed downward. Yeah. A male dark elf, indeed. What kind of adult has such terrible taste that they dress a boy in girl's clothes? He muttered under his breath. Is that so? Thank you. Mayor nodded politely, genuine gratitude in his heterochromatic eyes. Then he tucked the crown away and lifted his staff, expression turning serious. However, without warning, he swung the staff downward at Khajiit's legs. Crack. The sharp snap of breaking bones rang through the catacomb like a whip. Ah! Agony exploded up Khajiit's body. His scream choked off into a strangled gasp. He collapsed, rolling helplessly across the stone. Mayor's mismatched gaze remained cold as he spoke slowly, almost apologetically. Lady Bukabukagama's aesthetic sense is supreme. Boys should wear little skirts. Just then a dark portal tore open in the air. A lich in flowing mage robes stepped through, skeletal face impassive. Lord Mayor. By the order of Lord Mamanga, I am at your disposal. Yes, Mr. Lich. You know what to do, right? Mayor offered a small, polite smile. Lord Mamanga already informed me when he created me. The Lich bowed deeply, accepted the crown of wisdom from Mayor's hand, and carefully placed it on Nympharia's head. I shall sacrifice this body to face Lord Hellant until death. Monster. Khajiit rasped, terror flooding him as he stared up at the newcomer. Even as a necromancer, he could feel it, the vast, oppressive aura of death rolling off the Lich in waves. This was no ordinary undead. This was demon god class. Huff. Huff. He gasped, chest heaving. The Lich noticed his pitiful state and inclined its head apologetically toward Mare before approaching. You must be Khajiit, the mastermind behind the spiral of death ritual. Khajiit pushed himself up on trembling arms. What do you want? The spiral of death was his life's work, 5 years of preparation to transform himself into a high Lich at the cost of every soul in Irantal. How did they know? The Lich's greenish-black cheeks twitched in what might have been a smile. From this moment forward, the spiral of death ritual will become the Lich King's, seal-breaking ceremony. Khajiit slowly drew the death orb from his robes, clutching it like a final hope. Then, can I live? No. The Lich's sneer was cold. How could a mere scapegoat chosen by the Supreme Beings possibly survive? Since I can't live, then let's all die together. Khajiit activated the orb in desperation. 5 years of accumulated death energy surged within the deep purple sphere, brightening rapidly, churning violently as if it would detonate at any second. A boring toy. The Lich laughed disdainfully and reached out, snatching the orb. The moment its bony fingers closed around it, the light dimmed. The raging death magic inside calmed, subdued like a candle pinched out. What? Khajiit's mouth fell open. The self-destruction had been suppressed effortlessly. Weakling. There's no need to rush your death. The Lich scoffed, holding up the now inert orb. Don't worry. When the time comes, I will die alongside you. Will die alongside me? Khajiit trembled as he forced himself upright, confusion warring with pain on his pale face. Then the Lich's expression shifted, strangely, fanatically fervent. No. I will be the first to die by that person's hand. This is the supreme honor. Dying by someone else's hand, an honor? Khajiit collapsed weakly back to the ground and spat, lunatic. Mare stepped forward, clutching his staff tightly, voice small and timid. Mr. Lich, please make him shut up. It would be bad if he insulted the Supreme Being. You are right. We cannot allow that. The Lich sneered down at Khajiit. Death magic erupted in a dark wave. Crack. Khajiit's arms crumpled, bones pulverized, drooping uselessly like broken noodles. Before he could scream, an invisible force seized both limbs, balling them up and cramming them forcibly into his mouth. MMPH. MMPH. All color drained from Khajiit's face. Cold sweat poured down his skin as pain screamed through every nerve. Only then did Mare reveal an innocent, almost adorable smile. He reached into his inventory and produced a small ogre statue, handing it to the Lich with both hands. This is a magic item made by Father. It can activate Tier 10 Necromancy. Undead Calamity. The Lich accepted the statue reverently, voice thick with fervor. I will make good use of this treasure bestowed by the Supreme Being. Good luck, Mr. Lich, Mare said softly, offering a small cheer. The Lich nodded. Its expression smoothed into solemnity. It turned toward the distant city of Irantal. Magic power surged violently from its body, its form twisted, expanded, 5 meters, 10, 20. Boom. The catacomb ceiling shattered as the Lich grew taller still, bursting upward until it towered over 50 meters. Then its body turned ethereal, blue flames igniting across its massive frame, turning it into a blazing beacon in the night sky. Facing the brightly lit city, its voice thundered like rolling storm clouds. Khajiit, thank you for helping me break the seal. I am finally free. On the ground below, Khajiit stared upward with eyes nearly bursting from their sockets. His own broken arms stuffed in his mouth muffled his desperate, wordless protests. This is slander. Above the moonlit streets of Irantal, the griffin beat its wings in frantic, powerful strokes, hurtling toward Nfiria's pharmacy at breakneck speed. Whoosh! Quies's golden hair lashed wildly across his face in the rushing wind. He narrowed his eyes against the sting, jaw set, heart hammering with raw urgency. I absolutely cannot let Khajiit succeed. As a member of the Black Scriptures elite, no one grasped the crown of wisdom's danger better than he did. The relic's activation conditions were brutally strict, yet once worn, it granted the bearer the ability to wield 7th-tier magic. In the New World, where even the legendary Flutter paradigm could barely reach the 6th tier, and only awakened godkin like Zeshi Zetsumei pushed further, such power in the wrong hands spelled catastrophe. If Khajiit claimed it, the chaos would be bad enough. Retrieving the artifact afterward might become impossible. The thought made Quies's knuckles whiten around his sword hilt. He barely resisted the urge to wheel the griffin around and drive his blade straight through Clementine's treacherous heart. We're here. The griffin touched down with a sharp thud at the pharmacy entrance. Quies vaulted off before it fully settled and charged the door. The instant he reached the threshold, a thick, cloying stench of rotting corpses slammed into him, deep, lingering, the kind that only settled after death had time to fester. His heart stuttered. He shoved the door open. The reek flooded his lungs. Inside, the swords of darkness lay sprawled in the hallway, unmoving. But Nfiria was nowhere to be seen. I'm too late. Just then, a bright, lively voice cut through the night from outside. Hellant, it smells so bad here. Mino's voice. Hellant and the others had arrived. Quies turned toward the commotion. Moments later, Hellant and the armored Mammon strode in, Mino and Nabe close behind. Nabe wrinkled her nose at the foul air, her beautiful features hardening. With a flick of her wrist, she cast a gentle air purification spell. The stench began to thin and fade. Mamanga dropped to one knee, quickly scanning the fallen adventurers. They've only fainted. No serious harm. Nfiria was kidnapped, Quies started, but Helen's calm movement silenced him. A soft holy light bloomed in Helen's palm and flowed outward, sinking gently into the unconscious bodies. Ugh! One by one, Ninya and the others stirred, groaning as they pushed themselves upright. When their eyes finally focused, Ninya shook her head sharply and turned to Quies. Mr. Quies, after you chased that woman out, another necromancer appeared. He took Nfiria. A necromancer? Hellant asked quietly, feigning ignorance. What did he look like? Quies answered for her, voice tight. Khajiit. A necromancer who's already crossed into the hero realm. Shock rippled across the swords of darkness faces. Quies pressed on. He kidnapped Nfiria because the Crown of Wisdom, our theocracy's most guarded secret treasure, has extremely demanding usage conditions. Nfiria is one of the few who can meet them. Mamanga's tone deepened with gravity. The Crown of Wisdom? What would Khajiit want with it? Quies exhaled slowly, though he'd rehearsed this explanation in his head a dozen times. Khajiit has been plotting something called the Spiral of Death for years. Our intelligence suggests it involves a lich. The target is likely the entire population of Irantal. A bitter, ironic twist tugged at his mouth. The most insane part? Khajiit probably planned to turn himself into a lich through the mass sacrifice. Hellant listened in silence, then nodded gravely. Since the enemy is a necromancer, he's most likely hiding in the cemetery. With that, he turned and led the group out of the shop. They had barely stepped into the street when a monstrous presence erupted from the direction of the cemetery beyond the city walls. A lich swelled upward at terrifying speed, 5 meters, 10, 20, 50, until it towered over the rooftops. Its illusory body shimmered, wreathed in ghostly blue flames that lit the night like a second, malevolent moon. Quaes stared up in stunned disbelief, mouth dry. What kind of monster is that? The Lich's crimson eyes swept toward Irantil. Its voice rolled out like thunder, shaking windows and rattling bones. Caziot. I thank you for helping me break the seal. I, the Lich King, am finally free. Each syllable carried a sonic wave that made ears ring and teeth ache. Quaes clenched his jaw, hatred burning cold. I underestimated you. To think you were planning to break the seal of a demon god-class entity. High atop the distant clock tower, Clementine tightened her grip on her short combs until the leather wraps creaked. The Lich King's words echoed in her ears. Caziot, you stole my crown of wisdom just to release this thing. A venomous smile bared her teeth. Good. Very good. So you never planned to cooperate from the start. Her gaze sharpened into something lethal, as though she could peer straight through stone and bury her blades in Caziot's chest from here. The colossal disturbance yanked awake every citizen still clinging to sleep. People poured into the streets, staring upward in naked terror at the 50-meter nightmare dominating the sky. What kind of monster is that? It's huge. Mommy, it looks so scary. A devil, the devil's here. As the Lich King sensed the spreading panic, its blue flames flared brighter, illuminating its decayed features in cruel detail. A stiff, rictus grin stretched across rotting flesh, crimson eyes blazing with raw bloodlust. Humph. If I kill and devour the 100,000 souls of Irantil, I will return to my peak. The words landed like a death sentence. For one frozen heartbeat, the city went deathly silent, every face fixed on that monstrous visage. Then chaos erupted. People scattered like ants on a hot griddle, screaming, shoving, running in every direction. Run! That monster wants to kill us all. I don't want to die. Amid the rising tide of fear, the Adventurers Guild president and the city lord of Irantil exchanged grim looks and clenched their teeth. All adventurers, arm yourselves. To the city walls. Guard army, detail a squad to organize the evacuation of women and children. Everyone else, to the walls. We hold the line. Orders snapped out. Instantly, the city began to move with practiced urgency. Families hurried toward shelters, adventurers grabbed weapons and armor, guards slammed the massive gates shut and raced up the stone stairs to the battlements. The Lich King watched the frantic preparation with contempt, a low, disdainful laugh rumbling from its vast throat. Weak humans. I will show you that before me, all effort is futile. A terrifying aura exploded outward. Pitch-black undead magic coalesced into a thick, roiling dark mist that swallowed the sky. Moonlight vanished. Stars disappeared. The world plunged into unnatural darkness. The Lich King's voice echoed in every ear, cold and final, 10th tier magic, undead calamity. Creak. 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 As the Lich's voice rang out, chaotic roars began to faintly echo from the darkness. Then, pairs of eyes adorned with eerie blue soulfire suddenly lit up within the black curtain. Tens of thousands of bone skeletons crawled out of the darkness, covering the land. Every movement made their bones grind together, creating a harsh creak-clack sound. The guard army of Irantil could barely make out part of them with the help of the illumination magic on the city walls. Below the city, everything had already become an ocean of ghostly white. All the skeletons raised their heads in unison, staring at the living. Despite having no expressions, everyone on the wall could clearly sense their hunger for blood and life. Some even lost control of themselves at the sight, their legs turning to jelly as they collapsed onto the wall. So many skeletons. That was not all. As the adventurers arrived on the wall one after another, the magic casters suspended glowing orbs of light in the air, greatly expanding their field of vision. Only then did everyone realize that this overwhelming sea of skeletons was merely an appetizer. Behind the skeletons was a vast array of terrifying undead monsters, including tall, imposing zombies, death knights, and more. And surrounding the Lich King's massive frame, several figures that looked equally powerful stood at his side in a defensive formation. Humans, as the first course after the breaking of my seal, I shall allow you to resist. He paused, his towering height allowing him to take in all of Irantil at a glance. It was only when he used this advantage to spot a white figure and a person in black full-plate armor rushing toward the wall that he continued, "Now, let the game begin." As the Lich King's voice fell, the sea of white bones below the city was the first to move. Creak. 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 The ear-piercing sound of grinding bones continued without end. The adventurers and the guard army forced themselves to look down, only to see the sea of bones piling up layer upon layer, actually beginning to climb the city walls by stepping on the bodies of their own kind. Everyone, attack! At the officer's command, everyone hurriedly began their assault on the sea of bones below. Magic unit, use fireball. The magic casters stood on the wall, condensing blazing spheres of fire in their hands and aiming at the skeletons clinging to the base of the wall. Attack! Boom! 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 Hundreds of fireballs streaked through the night like meteors, trailing light as they smashed into the skeletal ladders built from white bone. In an instant, countless bone fragments and limbs were blasted apart, and the skeletal climbing ladders collapsed with a thunderous crash. Seeing this, many people on the wall showed signs of relief, their tension gradually easing. They shattered in a single hit. They were not that impressive after all. Don't let your guard down. The dangerous ones are coming. The commander shouted coldly, raising his voice in warning. As if to prove his words, a ranger among the adventurers stood at a high point and said in a trembling voice, "Armor. So many skeletons are wearing armor." The commander quickly looked toward the battlefield. He saw countless skeletons clad in armor appearing within the sea of bones, their frames reflecting a metallic sheen. That was not all. He even noticed hundreds of armored zombies mixed in among them. This group of armored skeletons and zombies advanced step by step. Meanwhile, the skeletons below the wall were still spontaneously forming skeletal ladders. "Damn that Lich King," he cursed, then turned to address everyone. "Attention! Mage unit, prioritize using fireball on the skeletons at the base of the wall. We absolutely cannot let them climb up. All other adventurers and soldiers, go get oil and stones. Move, now." The commander knew in his heart that those armored zombies and skeletons must not be allowed to reach the top. Without exception, they were monsters capable of rivaling ordinary adventurers and guards. With their numbers, if they ever scaled the wall, Irantil would surely fall. Watching the adventurers and guards on the wall fight desperately against the skeletons below, the commander's face remained calm, but his back was already soaked with sweat. He looked at the massive figure in the distance, all confidence long gone. "It's impossible for us to win. Unless hope descends." Boom. 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 Another round of fireball volleys from the mages snapped him back to reality. He turned to look at the women and children still evacuating in an orderly manner toward the shelters, and his resolve gradually hardened. "At the very least, I must fight for my wife and child. Aim for the very bottom of the skeletal ladders. That's their center of gravity." Every time a ladder made of skeletons formed, it was destroyed by a volley of fireballs. Below the wall, thick layers of white bones piled up, constantly reducing the effective height of the wall. The commander looked at the skeletons still advancing in waves, as well as the armored skeletons and zombies waiting in the distance, and could not help but sneer. "Quite clever, aren't you? But prepare the oil." Once enough skeletons died beneath the wall, they would naturally form stepping stones for the undead forces that followed. After the commander gave the order, adventurers and soldiers poured barrel after barrel of oil. In the end, they even hurled the barrels down directly. Fireballs, release. Another round of fireballs came crashing down, and the flames instantly ignited the oil on the layer of bones. A wall of fire rose up at once, separating Irantel from the undead army. The flames burned fiercely, gradually charring the layers of bone that had piled up earlier. Skeletons continued to surge toward the wall of fire, but the moment they stepped into it, they sank into the scorched, brittle bones, becoming fresh fuel for the blaze. Under the intense heat, everyone was drenched in sweat, yet they all felt a sense of relief. Relaxed smiles even appeared on faces illuminated by the orange-red firelight. At this rate, they would not be able to break through, right? At that moment, the battlefield fell into a brief hush. The firelight atop the walls of Irantel became the sole focus in the darkened battlefield. Swish! Suddenly, a terrifying sword aura sliced through 7 or 8 meters of the wall of fire and struck the city wall. That sword aura seemed to have been restrained, dissipating the moment it touched the wall. However, the wall of fire outside the city had been cleaved into a literal vacuum zone. The guards on the wall could clearly see countless armored skeletons and zombies beginning to move. It was as if that sword aura itself had been the signal. They're jumping up. The guard army and the adventurers watched in horror as those monsters leapt over the 7 or 8 meter high wall with nothing more than a light bound. Slash. Arg. An adventurer failed to react in time and was cut in half by a sword-wielding skeleton. The stench of blood instantly filled the air. Before anyone else could even process their shock, dozens of skeletons and zombies had already leapt onto the wall. The ordinary guards were completely helpless against them. Only the adventurers could barely manage to hold them back. The commander struggled to block a bone sword that came within inches of him, then looked toward the distant Lich King. That face seemed to be wearing a mocking smile. "See, I'm just playing with you." As the smell of blood on the wall grew thicker and thicker, the hearts of the commander and everyone else sank. Is the city about to fall? Underscore. Just as despair threatened to swallow the wall whole, a clear, resonant voice cut through the darkness. 9th tier magic, holy light illumination. A gentle radiance washed over everyone's eyes. Defenders looked up, blinking against the sudden brightness. High above the blackened sky, a massive sphere of pure holy light hung like a second sun. Its brilliance pierced the unnatural gloom, flooding the surroundings of Irantel in blinding white. For the first time since the mist descended, the defenders could see clearly. Tens of millions of undead stretched across the plain, an endless tide. Most were low-tier fodder, skeleton soldiers, shambling zombies, crawling bone piles. But the sheer scale was overwhelming, a white ocean of death that seemed to swallow the horizon. Before despair could fully take root, the skeletons they'd been fighting began to crumble. The ones clinging to the wall lost cohesion, tumbling in heaps of ash and bone fragments. These undead, they're disappearing. Joy rippled along the battlements as holy light touched them. Any skeleton or zombie caught in the radiance disintegrated instantly, purified into drifting gray motes. Ah! A miracle! Ah! The commander leaned over the parapet, laughter bursting from his chest. It's really a miracle. We're saved. A dark curtain snapped into existence beneath the holy sphere, shielding the undead clustered around the Lich King. The light could not penetrate it. The Lich King tilted its massive, flaming skull upward and sneered. The first round is over. As the words faded, the holy sun dimmed, its radiance folding inward until it resolved into a humanoid silhouette. Flowing white robes, a gentle mist of light, long white hair catching the glow. Hellant descended slowly, face serene yet weary, like a descending Holy Spirit. He cast one last deep glance toward the Lich King, then flew back to the wall. The battlefield plunged into darkness again. Silence returned, heavy and expectant. Hellant landed lightly on the stone, but his knees buckled almost immediately. Mino rushed forward, catching his arm, eyes wide with worry. Hellant, why do you push yourself so hard? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he offered the commander, the adventurers, and every exhausted defender a tired but steady smile. Don't worry. I will never let the people of Irantal die at the hands of the Lich King. The commander stared at the obvious fatigue etched into Helent's features and felt something stir in his chest: gratitude, awe, renewed resolve. He didn't know this man's origins, but those words alone rekindled dying hope. Mammon stepped forward, twin greatswords resting on his shoulders. His voice carried solemn weight. I, Mammon, swear the same. I will give everything to keep Irantal standing. Quies touched down on his griffin, face pale. Mr. Hellant, Mr. Mammon, there are still at least 1,000 undead around the Lich King. More than 100 are hero class or higher. He swallowed. Theocracy intelligence had never mentioned a sealed demon god like this one, capable of 10th tier magic right out of the gate, summoning tens of millions of undead as a casual opener. And that phantom silhouette wreathed in blue flames. If I'm not mistaken, this isn't even his limit. He said he'd only reach his peak after devouring every living soul in Irantal. Quies looked at Hellant with genuine concern. 9th tier magic at full power was already miraculous for a human. Facing a demon god still holding 10th tier reserves? Suicide. Yet Hellant had just made unbreakable promises to the city. He would never run. Quies drew a steadying breath. We've reached a desperate situation. Whoosh. The dark curtain withdrew. Countless crimson eyes reignited in the gloom, hungry and unblinking. The Lich King's ghostly flames flared brighter, making him a beacon of malice. He grinned, voice rolling like distant thunder. Humans. Are you ready? The second round is about to begin. Thump. 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 Synchronized, heavy footsteps pounded the earth in rhythm with racing hearts. Under the renewed illumination spells, the defenders saw them. Squads of massive armored zombies, towering figures carrying swords and shields, emerging from the darkness. D-Death Knights. Many adventurers recognized them instantly. Mithril rank equivalents at minimum, some even stronger. How can we win against so many Death Knights? Despair crept back in. Then Hellant and Mamanga stepped forward together. Their auras flared outward, overwhelming, unshakable. Hellant spoke calmly but firmly. Everyone, I, Hellant, am a man of my word. I will protect Irantal. So please, show some spirit. Having just witnessed the holy light illumination, many defenders straightened, voices rising in ragged but determined response. Yea. We'll fight to the death. We have to protect the people. No retreat. Very good. Hellant nodded, satisfied, then turned toward the advancing Death Knights. Nabe, Mino, Quies. Stay on the wall. Prevent any breakthroughs. He exchanged a glance with Mamanga. Mamanga and I will go down and wipe out this trash. In the blink of an eye, both blurred forward, charging straight into the undead ranks. Under the stunned gazes of the wall, Hellant gathered holy light in his palm and swept it outward. A casual wave disintegrated dozens of Death Knights in a flash of purifying radiance. Mamanga, armored in black, swung his greatswords without restraint. Each arc carved through armored undead like wheat before a scythe, bodies collapsing in heaps. The commander swallowed hard, voice hoarse. So strong. He had seen Helent's earlier miracle, yet this casual dominance still shook him. Such power had been walking Irantal as an adventurer, and no one had known. Quies was even more stunned. Watching the two slaughter hero-class Death Knights like vegetables, wave after wave falling without slowing them, he felt wave after wave of disbelief crash through him. Hellant had unleashed 9th-tier magic at full power and still had strength to spare. The Death Knights couldn't even withstand a single exchange. And Mammon. Quies had underestimated him too. Was he truly on the same level as Hellant? While the two carved through the undead below, the Lich King finally stirred again. He pointed lazily toward them, voice playful. Soldier against soldier, general against general. Don't break the rules now. With that, several figures beside him, each radiating terrifying auras, flickered and roared, charging straight toward Hellant and Mamanga. _______________________ In an instant, the 5 figures split into 2 precise groups. 2 of the towering undead positioned themselves to block Mamanga, their massive forms casting long, ominous shadows across the battered ground. The remaining 3 advanced to confront Hellant, positioning themselves with cold, mechanical discipline. The 3-blade zombies exuded an aura of razor-sharp menace. Their crimson eyes burned with tyrannical hunger, and they held their enormous blades upright in perfect unison, edges glinting as though thirsting for blood. These were horrors second only to the most legendary demon god-class undead. As Hellant and Mamanga found themselves pinned down, the Death Knights abandoned their earlier siege with eerie, synchronized precision. They withdrew from the city walls and reformed ranks, resuming their relentless march toward Irantel's gates like an unstoppable tide of black steel and rotting flesh. From the walls, Ninya watched the scene unfold with wide, worried eyes. Those undead, they look so strong, she whispered, voice trembling slightly. Of course they were strong. These blade zombies ranked among the elite horrors that even adamantite adventurers would hesitate to face alone. Quies Hazia Quintia had long since passed the point where shock could touch him. He simply stared in silence at the endless stream of Death Knights pouring toward the city below, their armored footsteps a low, unending rumble that vibrated through the stone. After a long moment, he gathered the mana coiled within his weary body and initiated the connection. A faint ripple of magical energy spread outward like ripples on dark water. Moments later, Zinedine's familiar voice echoed clearly in his mind, carried by the Thousand Leagues astrologer's spell. Quies? Why contact me so late? Has something happened? Quies lifted his gaze toward the distant Lich King, its towering form glowing like a ghostly blue torch against the night sky. His voice came out hoarse and cracked. My lord, you should see for yourself. At the slain theocracy's Clearwater Scripture headquarters, the Thousand Leagues astrologer completed her surveillance spell. Within the crystal ball, the images finally resolved for Zinedine. A colossal lich, easily 50 meters tall, loomed over the human city like an apex predator surveying trapped prey. Between the city walls and the monstrous lich marched countless Death Knights in flawless formation, an army of animated death. The undead deliberately parted around 2 distinct zones on the battlefield, leaving open spaces where several figures stood out starkly. In one area, a fully armored warrior was surrounded by 2 undead of terrifying power, near demon god level in raw presence. In the other stood Hellant, now confronted by 3 blade zombies whose blades seemed to drink in the moonlight. The sight struck Zinedine like a physical blow. His voice sharpened with urgency. Quies, why has a demon god level undead appeared? And why is it attacking a human city? According to what intelligence we have, Quies replied grimly, Kajiat, a former Zuranorn operative, used the Crown of Wisdom to forcibly break the seal on this Lich King ahead of our own schedule. That's what triggered this catastrophe. At the mention of the Crown of Wisdom, the same furious realization flashed through both men's minds. Clementine, you deserve to die 1,000 times over. But recriminations could wait. There was no time for personal vendettas. Quies's voice grew even rougher. Lord Zinedine, in this desperate situation, can we request Zeshi Zetsumii for support? It's too late, Zinedine answered, his tone as dry and brittle as old parchment. Even ignoring the vast distance between the kingdom and the theocracy, approval would still require the consensus of the other high priests. You know how they deliberate. CorruptElf knew it all too well. The theocracy was no autocracy ruled by a single scripture's leader. Every major decision demanded a vote among the cardinals and high priests, a process that could drag on for days even in peacetime. The memory of the failed operation to charm the catastrophe dragon lord with downfall of castle and country surfaced unbidden. Despite clear warnings of powerful enemies lurking in the shadows, the council had pushed forward with blind stubbornness, gambling everything on securing a supreme asset. The result: the world item stolen, Lady Care dead, and several elite Black Scripture members lost forever. A bitter thought crystallized in CorruptElf's mind: this council is becoming a dangerous hindrance to humanity's survival. Before he could sink deeper into frustration, Zinedine's voice cut through again. CorruptElf, this is an emergency of the highest order. I need you to persuade Hellant not to fight to the death. Zinedine's judgment was cold and pragmatic. Hellant's value. His ability to mass-produce God's blood far outweighed the lives of a single city's population. If he survived, even without immediately joining the theocracy, his alchemical knowledge could dramatically bolster humanity's overall strength against the encroaching darkness. I'll try, CorruptElf muttered, running a hand through his blonde hair in weary frustration. From Hellant's unyielding stance, he already knew the outcome. The man would almost certainly fight until his last breath. He hated people like that, upright, inflexible, stubbornly heroic. No amount of logic or pleading could sway them. Compared to such resolve, CorruptElf felt painfully cowardly. Far in the distance, atop a shadowed bell tower, Clementine's gaze had never wavered from Hellant. Hellant. I thought you were just some minor noble playing at being an adventurer. She had been utterly stunned the moment he appeared. Wreathed in blinding holy light, rising into the night sky like a second sun, ruthlessly purging more than half the undead horde in an instant. Yet worry gnawed at her chest. In the heart of the battlefield, Hellant now faced three blade zombies, monsters she knew all too well were capable of carving through adamantite teams. He burned through such a powerful spell right from the start, she murmured. His stamina must be dangerously low by now. Her pretty features hardened, crimson eyes narrowing as they locked onto the towering Lich King. She studied it for a long, calculating moment. Its body remains partially illusory, which means Cagiot's ritual with the Crown of Wisdom didn't fully succeed. The summoning was incomplete. Clementine's mind raced. Since the Lich had declared Cagiot responsible for its release, the Crown must have been involved. She didn't know spells to directly disrupt such high-tier magic, but she did know one very specific countermeasure. Back in the theocracy, she had personally removed the Crown of Wisdom from the Miko Princess of Earth's head. As long as I rip that crown off Nfiria's head, she thought, lips curving into a cold smile, even if the Lich King doesn't return to its seal, it will at least be crippled, severely weakened. With that decision made, Clementine launched forward like an arrow loosed from a bow. She darted along the battlefield's edge, circling wide to approach the Lich King's position undetected. The focus shifted back to Hellant. A radiant aura of platinum holy light enveloped him, sacred and utterly inviolable. Mana surged outward in a palpable wave as he ascended higher into the air. 7th tier magic, holy light meteor. His voice rang across the battlefield like a clarion call. Everyone, living and undead alike, seemed to hear the sharp tear of air splitting apart. Then, 7 colossal meteors, each tens of meters across and trailing blinding white contrails, tore through the black miasma the Lich King had spread to blot out the stars. Platinum flames roared to life along their undersides from friction with the atmosphere, turning each into a blazing comet of divine wrath. The entire battlefield ignited with blinding radiance. The 7 meteors became the sole focus of every eye, living or hollow. In sheer destructive spectacle and raw impact, the display surpassed even the 9th tier spell Hellant had unleashed at the battle's outset. Boom. 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 The meteors struck in rapid succession. Each impact gouged out craters over 100 meters wide, the ground heaving violently as shockwaves rippled outward. Dust clouds billowed skyward while countless Death Knights caught in the blasts were obliterated, armor and bone reduced to scattering ash. As the brilliant light gradually faded and night reclaimed the field, the devastation was far from finished. From within each of the 7 craters, towering pillars of holy platinum flame suddenly erupted skyward like pillars supporting the sky itself. The battlefield became a surreal mosaic of searing light and encroaching darkness. From the city walls, the defenders watched in awe as Hellant hovered high above, untouched by the chaos. Within 3 of those blazing pillars, the 3-blade zombies writhed and shrieked in agony, their undead flesh blackening and flaking away. Moments later, they crumbled entirely into fine ash, scattered on the wind. Yes, well done. A surge of desperate hope swept through the survivors. With a single spell, Hellant had annihilated more than half the Death Knight horde and eradicated the 3 most terrifying threats among them. As long as Hellant stood, they had a real chance of winning this impossible battle. Boom! Just as everyone on the city walls was rejoicing, a beam of ghostly blue light shot from the Lich King's hand, streaked across the sky, and pierced straight through Hellant's body. This sudden sneak attack sent everyone's hearts into their throats. Ah! Hellant's figure wavered in midair. Clutching the wound on his chest, he turned back with difficulty to look at the Lich King. The latter casually withdrew his hand behind his back and chuckled playfully. "Kakik, I told you, soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals." Hellant did not reply. At the scorched wound on his chest, the ghostly blue flames clung like maggots to bone, devouring his flesh. Seeing Hellant remain silent, the mockery on the Lich King's face deepened. He pointed at the heavy casualties among the Death Knights on the ground and laughed toward the distant city walls. "He was injured all because of you. Blocking my army of Death Knights for your sake. Muhahaha." The Lich King's massive frame and booming laughter echoed across the battlefield, striking everyone's hearts like a heavy hammer. Clementine, sprinting along the edge of the battlefield, saw the grievously wounded Hellant. A strange pang of pain struck her heart, yet her legs did not slow. Instead, she kept racing toward the Lich King's feet. She knew that with her current strength, even reaching the battlefield would be meaningless. Now, her only hope was that after taking the Crown of Wisdom, the Lich King could be sealed once more. At that thought, Clementine's crimson eyes flashed with ruthlessness. "Caziot, don't let me catch you." Watching that unsteady figure on the battlefield, the guard army and the adventurers were overwhelmed by an indescribable sense of guilt and despair. They both wished Hellant would not have to endure any longer, yet at the same time hoped he would act like a savior and refuse to give up, turning the tide to save them. "Hellant!" Mino burst from the city wall like a madwoman, flying straight toward the center of the battlefield to bring Hellant back. Seeing someone rush out from the wall, another figure emerged at the Lich King's side. A skeleton mage, its eyes flickering with cyan soul fire, dashed through the air toward Hellant, clearly intending to deliver the final blow. "Don't even think about it." Mammon swung his greatswords wildly, knocking aside 2 undead in front of him. He leaped forward in a single stride, sword light gathering as he cleaved downward. Swoosh! The blade of light grew larger and larger, forming a slash more than 10 meters long that cut directly between Hellant and the skeleton mage. By then, Mino had already arrived. Without time to thank Mamanga, she carefully hoisted the critically injured Hellant onto her shoulders and raced back toward the city wall. "Hey, I never said anything about an intermission," the Lich King sneered as his hand curled into a phantom grip and reached forward. Whoosh! The palm burning with ghostly blue flame sent everyone's hearts into their throats, as if it were not Hellant it was grabbing, but them. "Quies, what are you waiting for? Go and support them." Zinedine roared frantically in Quies's mind. Hellant was a treasure to humanity. They could lose anyone but him. Even as Zinedine shouted, Quaes had already mounted his griffin and charged forward towards Mino and Hellant. The Lich King's massive palm closed in from above. The terrifying wind pressure it generated made it difficult for the griffin to climb, forcing Quaes to struggle to keep control as he flew toward Mino. "Mino, give Sir Hellant to me." Quaes fought his way closer, looking at the nearly unconscious Hellant on her shoulder. Quaes' gaze hardened. As things stood, his only option was to use reverse teleportation to send Hellant and himself away first. As for the others, they would have to fend for themselves. Just then, Momonga's figure suddenly appeared in front of Quaes. He spoke without leaving room for argument. "Mino, take Hellant back into the city first. Quaes, control the griffin and fly me up." "I understand," Mino replied with a solemn expression. "What do you mean?" Quaes frowned deeply. In this situation, he wanted to fly into the sky. Could it be that this Mammon fellow intended to take the Lich King's blow head-on? Mammon nodded. His expression was hidden behind his solid helmet, but his voice was unwavering. "As long as we withstand this strike, Hellant will be safe. You really want to take it head-on?" The wind pressure above grew even stronger. Quaes could already feel the scorching heat from the ghostly blue flames on the Lich King. With no time to think it through, he could only grit his teeth and agree. "Understood." Quaes immediately guided the griffin upward, struggling to carry Momonga into the air. They only managed to steady themselves when they were nearly level with the Lich King's enormous hand. Seeing the fully armored Momonga in midair, the Lich King's movement suddenly stalled, and even the flames around his body dimmed slightly. After a brief silence, he spoke. "You think you can block me?" Looking at the behemoth before him, Momonga sneered. "Of course. I have to buy time for Hellant." This play was about to reach its climax. As the one who had created the final boss, how could he not have his own moment in the spotlight? On the ground, Quaes glanced out of the corner of his eye at Mino, who was almost back at the wall, and let out a sigh of relief. Once Hellant reached the wall, he would be safe for the time being. He looked up at Mammon facing the Lich King and muttered coldly to himself, "This Mammon fellow certainly has admirable courage. At least he bought us time." Quaes thought that when Mammon was inevitably seriously injured by the Lich King, he would use reverse teleportation to pull him back to the wall as well, then look for a chance to escape. Consider it saving this brave warrior's life. It seems those around Hellant are all upright individuals. Seeing that Hellant's life was temporarily out of danger, Zinedine let out a sigh of relief and began to take Mammon seriously. This dark warrior had not fallen behind at all while being besieged by two lesser demon god-level undead just now. However, he likely would not be able to block this strike from the Lich King. Even through the crystal ball, Zinedine could feel the sky-blotting terror of the Lich King's massive hand. In the theocracy, only Zeshi Zetsumei could deal with such a terrifying demon god. He was already prepared to warn Quaes to save Mammon. In the air, facing the Lich King's descending palm, Mammon stood tall on the griffin's back, gripping his great swords with both hands as his aura surged. Just as the massive hand was about to reach him, Momonga suddenly swung his twin blades with reckless force. Martial art, six-fold slash of light. Each of the two greatswords carved out 6 flashes of light at incredible speed, weaving together horizontally and vertically in the air to form a massive net of sword energy. It stood between Momonga and the Lich King's enormous palm. A sword net disguised as magic? After only a brief moment of thought, the Lich instantly understood Lord Momonga's intention. Burning with ghostly blue flames, it pressed down without hesitation. He actually blocked it. Quaes' eyes widened in genuine surprise and rising delight. A deeper respect for raw power gleamed in his gaze as he stared up at the dark warrior perched atop the struggling griffin. The vast net of radiant sword energy suspended before Mammon refused to shatter beneath the Lich King's colossal, flame-wreathed palm. Instead, with relentless pressure, it slowly forced the monstrous hand backward, inch by agonizing inch. After a tense stalemate that seemed to stretch the very air taut, the Lich King abruptly feigned weakness. Its towering skeletal frame swayed dramatically, as though overpowered, yielding ground to the shimmering barrier. A cold snort echoed from its hollow maw. Think a mere warrior could block one of my strikes. What is your name? Mamanga, ever pragmatic, seized the opportunity. Making the alias Mammon, renowned across Irantal, aligned perfectly with his broader objectives here. Standing firm atop the griffin, he raised his voice to thunder across the battlefield. Listen well, monster. I am the Dark Warrior, Mammon. The words rolled like distant thunder, carrying to every corner of the frozen field and imprinting themselves on the minds of defenders and undead alike. Excellent. This Mammon is yet another treasure of humanity. Zinedine's eyes flashed with astonishment through the crystal ball surveillance. He had truly not anticipated that the armored adventurer could not only endure a direct blow from the Lich King but momentarily overpower it in raw contest. Yet admiration could wait. Though the Lich King appeared at a brief disadvantage, the wider situation remained dire for the humans. Death Knights still encircled the city, and the colossal undead lord loomed unchallenged. As Zinedine pondered next moves, the Lich King's expression shifted back to mocking amusement. Muhahaha. Good, very good. A little pre-dinner entertainment has brought me such exquisite joy. Its hollow gaze swept over the guards and adventurers lining the city walls, lingering meaningfully on Hellant. Now cradled limply in Mino's arms. In an instant, every undead across the field, those harrying the walls and those arrayed below, froze in perfect unison. Humans, the Lich King intoned with theatrical patience, I have played enough. In 10 minutes, we shall commence the third round. As the words fell, the ghostly blue flames wreathing its body surged brighter, fiercer. Paradoxically, no scorching heat radiated outward. Instead, layers of biting frost crept across the ground from its feet, crystallizing grass, stone, and fallen corpses alike. Within mere seconds, the environs of Irantal transformed into a bleak winter wasteland. Swirling snowflakes danced in the wind, and the cold clawed through armor and cloaks, drawing involuntary shivers from even the hardiest defenders. The Lich King stood motionless, elegant and unhurried, like a gourmet allowing his meal to cool before indulgence. In 10 minutes, I shall savor my feast. A feast. The implication struck like ice water, they themselves were the meal. Are we truly going to die here? The 10-minute countdown sapped the last vestiges of strength from many. Adventurers and guard army soldiers alike did not wail or panic, they simply slumped against the battlements in heavy silence, watching the snow drift lazily from the darkened sky, as though already half frozen in resignation. Quies, steady the griffin. We're returning to the wall. Mammon descended unsteadily, his armored form radiating visible exhaustion. I've reached my limit just blocking that single strike from the Lich King. Quies gave a solemn nod and guided the beast downward, bearing them both back to the safety of the ramparts. Quies, Zinedine's voice came through the mental link, tinged with cautious relief at the Lich King's announced delay. Once Hellant and Mammon have taken the god's blood, use your teleportation magic to extract them immediately. As long as neither was slain outright, escape remained viable. And Hellant's grievous wounds? Zinedine harbored no real concern there. An alchemist capable of producing god's blood, the fabled red healing elixir of Yggdrasil legend, would surely heal himself in time, provided death was not instantaneous. No injury existed that god's blood could not mend, or so the records claimed. On the city wall, Mino cradled Hellant tightly, her pale fingers trembling as she pulled aside his torn clothing to expose the wound. The ghostly blue flame still clung there, writhing like parasitic worms burrowing deeper into flesh. Tears streamed unchecked down her cheeks. Hellant, the wound, it won't heal at all. Her broken sobs echoed across the rampart, deepening the pall of despair that already smothered the defenders. If even Hellant, their radiant savior, lay helpless against this corruption, what hope remained for anyone? A god, perhaps? Hellant, pale and weak in her arms, managed a faint, subtle glance upward, encouraging, almost amused. In a voice barely above a whisper meant only for her, he murmured, "Nice acting. I'll reward you properly when we get back." Just then, Quies landed with Mamanga in tow. The moment his boots touched stone, he hurried to Helen's side. "Miss Mino, quickly, administer the god's blood potion to him." He could not fathom why they had delayed so long. Did they truly wish to wallow in collective despair? Before Mino could respond, Hellant forced himself upright with visible effort. Offering a wan, bitter smile, he produced a small vial from his inventory and uncorked it. The rich crimson liquid within shimmered with potent life force. He poured it directly over the wound. The moment the legendary god's blood touched the ghostly blue flames, it did not quench them. Instead, the fire greedily consumed the vitality, flaring brighter and hotter, spreading tendrils of frost deeper into Helen's chest. "As you can see," Hellant rasped, voice strained but steady, "the Lich King's flames devour life force itself. My potion is merely fuel to this unholy blaze. There truly existed wounds beyond even God's blood's reach?" Quies stared at the writhing azure corruption, shock and anxiety etching deep lines into his face. Through the crystal ball, Zinedine fell utterly silent. Even his disciplined mind, honed by decades of intelligence gathering and ruthless pragmatism, struggled to accept the sight. He had long believed that, barring deliberate rejection, no injury could withstand a god's blood potion. Evidently, he had been profoundly mistaken. His gaze flicked between the dying Hellant and the Lich King, an abyss given form, and a cold, mirthless laugh escaped him. Could Hellant possibly be deceiving me? In league with that terrifying demon god? The notion was absurd, impossible. Zinedine shoved the paranoia aside and issued the command. "Quies, take Hellant and ESC." Before the word "escape" could leave his lips, Hellant's weak but clear voice cut through. "There is one more way. To slay the Lich King in a single, decisive blow." Though faint, the words carried to every ear on the wall. A fragile spark of hope reignited in eyes that had dulled with resignation. Strength seemed to return to weary limbs as adventurers and soldiers slowly rose, drawn inexorably closer to Hellant. Mamanga stepped forward beside him. "What way?" Every face turned toward Hellant in desperate expectation. "No, you'll die." Before he could elaborate, Mino threw her arms around him in a fierce embrace. Her eyes, red and swollen from tears, shimmered with fresh anguish. Her voice broke on sobs. "Summoning the Holy Domain God Lord in your current state, it will kill you." Holy Domain God Lord? Quies and Zinedine both snapped to full alertness. That name, the deity Hellant had referenced before. Could such a being truly contend with the despair incarnate that was the Lich King on this damned battlefield?
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.